Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 94, our first episode for book 10, Crossroads of Twilight, where we will cover the 80-page prologue. I am your host Mo, and I'm joined once again by my unenthused friends, Willie.
I want to just correct you there. It's not 80, it's 89 pages and 7,000 hours on audiobook.
It sure does feel like that. What is this crap, Moritz? You just not skip this. This should have been like previously on I can't even remember what our show's called.
just a Mo recap.
Just recap it in like 5 minutes, and then we get into like chapter 1. I
Yeah,
can see why this is the slog.
Honestly,
this is 100% the slog for me.
I could. No, 100% I could do that. I could go, right, in this episode, a dude is in the snow. Another dude talks
Everyone's
to a
in
dude.
the fucking snow.
Where's our enthusiasm for wringing the joy out of book 10 and making it work and like really focusing in on the politics and the undercurrents and the intangible action, leaving behind our teenager selves who are only craving magic use and sword fights, and really getting into the character arcs and the nuances.
The main thing for me is that there's very little character arcs, whatever the heck, and there are no sword fights, and it's just long, and it's
people
hot.
Standing around with inner monologues and then talking to other people next to them. They were standing around, and then everybody just goes, all right, let's go. And then they just leave. That's what happens.
Yeah, pretty much. That's large sections of the series.
It's just somebody thinking and then saying something to someone else, and then they walk away, and then it goes to someone else's point of view, and you're like, okay.
You just described 90% of the books, Jody. Like that is what a lot of it is.
Sources get cleansed. Swords get fought. Lots of things happen. Powers are wrought. But no, nothing happens here whatsoever.
That's so funny because, I mean, in the last episode, I was talking about, like, I've already read the intro, I've already read the prologue, and I'm so excited. It's really set things up. I'm really amped. Maybe I set you guys up for failure.
And then you made us read it and let these great expectations, our opinions of it to you. Like, yeah, no, it's a swift kick in the nuts. And especially if I've got good TV waiting for me to watch. I'm busy watching Blue Eye Samurai, and that's just fantastic.
Nice. Speaking of sword fights.
Yeah, it's real sword fights.
And not a lot of just talking and thinking.
Yeah, very little of that. More slicing.
Yes.
Okay, well, look, I'm going to have to be the cheerleader here for at least this episode, and I'm guessing a lot of book 10 if my memory of this book is anything to go by. And who knows? Look, every opinion is valid, right? I'm not going to try to convince you that this book is not boring, but I will try and show you what I'm finding interesting about it and see if maybe some of that rubs off on you. If it doesn't, then we can officially take a big rubber stamp and just stamp book 10 the slog, like we've dispelled the myth about at least books 8 and 9. If book 10 ends up being a massive hack, we'll call a spade, and we'll say it.
I was thinking while reading this that, like you, I think I only on my second reread only did chapter highlights that I found online. I don't think I ever reread this book. When Memory of Light came out, I did a reread. And then when I got to 10, printed out some stuff, because back in the day you had to print things out. You couldn't read them on your phone or these modern
No.
And just went through it like that. I wish I could do it again. I'm just going to download chapter highlights for every episode.
Now you have to do 3-hour podcasts every fortnight talking about it incessantly.
Ugh.
Well, look, basically, the prologue of this book is 13% of the entire book.
Okay, pause there. You guys are getting hung up on the length of this chapter. This is the same number of pages we cover in every episode. So whether there's a chapter icon in between them or not is irrelevant, right? Like there's a number. It's not like it's one long point of view that's 80 or 89 pages or whatever it may be.
But I'm getting hung up about the 8 different point of views and 13% of the book that has got fuck all to do with where we're going. It's just like, you know what? I need to tidy up some things. Let's tidy this up.
There's a lot happening.
Make me eat my words later. Let's move on.
Yes, let's
whining.
not sink this episode in the first 5 minutes.
50% of our listeners have already turned off. Like, oh, fuck this.
Yeah, this episode's going to be garbage. Okay, well, let's look in the rear view mirror, maybe with some rose-tinted glasses at a time when we were having a lot more fun with the contents of the chapters in everybody's favorite section called Callbacks. Billy, you asked if B. Arthur did voiceover work, so I went to go check her IMDb page, and there doesn't seem to be much, but one role that you may be thinking of is the voice of the femputer in Futurama, which I'm pretty sure someone made a snoo joke in a recent episode as well, yes. So we've come full circle, so yeah, that was her.
Wow.
Okay, pedantry alert. Vil, you kept referring to the inn where Torval and Gedwyn were staying and where Fane had laid a trap for Rand and Land, but it specifically was not an inn, but a room in a bootmaker's attic.
It's always in an inn.
Sleeping place.
Hey, I did say pedantry alert before. Wow. Don't shoot me now. When Rand says that he found what he needed in Farmadding, it's in direct response to Min soothing him about his capture and how he's presenting over the bond. Like Min is feeling his state of mind. And that's when he says the sword being grateful to the forge, though not fond of it. And it being a direct reference to Rand's forging of himself as a weapon, cold and emotionless. So yes, he got Cadswain as an advisor, but he didn't find her there, and I don't think that's what he was referring to. The context of the conversation with Min makes it clear that it's the hardening of him and his whole self that he was specifically referring to. More pedantry when Nynaeve is walking up the hill complaining about someone. We said, is she complaining about Cadswain or Elise? It's actually clearly Cadswain, because Cadswain had been issuing orders just before, and Nynaeve walks up the hill saying that woman could try a stone's patience. Are you sure Min couldn't be wrong about her just once? And then when they're about to begin, Nynaeve asks if they shouldn't wait for Cadswain, and Rand thinks to himself, you wouldn't say Nynaeve had been complaining about the woman moments before. So Rand is actually thinking it was Cadswain that she was complaining about. We have seldom seen Sindain before this battle, and always through other Forsaken's eyes. So I think this hint at her perceived betrayal by Rand might be the first clue that she's Lanfear reincarnated. We were wondering, have there been other clues? Like much of Robert Jordan's writing? Yes, there certainly were clues, but none of them nearly as blatant as here, where she's like, he's betrayed me, he's using the access keys, I would have used the access keys with him and faced the creator, echoing or just repeating straight up a lot of the words that Lanfear had been using before.
The big thing for me with regards to that also is that it is, we've had this character just arrive with Moradin. At that point. It's there was nothing of a resurrection or anything that sort of gives it background or context. It's just this new person that's mind-trapped or that's caught in the thing. So for me, that also, it
obscured it.
It obscured it a lot better. And I mean, hindsight, after you finish the books, you're like, yep, okay, cool. Sindain Lanfear, very easy. But when you're reading it, there's no link to it at all, unless someone spoils it for you.
Especially because her power level is different now, and other people are noticing that. So you're like, oh no, it can't be Lanfear because she was one of the most powerful women, or equal most powerful with Semirag, I think it is. And you're right, with Osangar and Arangar, we get the whole scene where they discover their new bodies and look at themselves in the mirror and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
No, so with Sindain, there's none of that. There's no what am I looking for the word now? Internal monologue or point of view where there's a discussion of, I used to be this beautiful and strong, or where anything that throws a bone towards
she just
Lanfear.
Looks displeased all the time. Yeah. No,
I mean, Moghedien is pretty clear as well, and I think the two combined there is there should be clarity around who it is, and I think that's also maybe the catch there, that Moghedien was a clear transition to being mind-trapped and being kept with him, where he just arrives with her, fresh meat off the truck, the import truck of Forsaken.
The meat truck.
And there are lands that we don't read about much, right? He could have found her in Seanchan, in Shara, and there's all kinds of places that this person could have come from. So yeah, quite right. Speaking of Lanfear, a point I forgot to mention in the last episode is when the black flames reach up from the dome covering Shadow Logoth, they're described as like, blacker than the deepest black and blah, blah, blah. And it's this like roiling flame. I remember that actually sounds exactly like the fire that takes out the Sharom. Where Lanfear actually digs, like bores the hole into the Dark One's realm, and like when the Sharom explodes in a black fire and crashes over the Column University in the Age of Legends. That's that same black fire is described there.
That's right.
Then, as I warned you guys about just before we started recording, I went back after our lengthy discussion about the efficacy of the writing style in that final chapter in the last book, and the sort of the dangling threads that were left where we didn't find any real closure, and like the sort of the disconnected nature of the whole encounter without it feeling like a whole cohesive battle I went back and I actually read it, and I made some notes about every single interaction to sort of see how it all hangs together. So I'm going to give you guys, I don't want to say brief because I don't want to lie to you, but I'm going to give you a summary of how it goes and see if I can maybe plaster over some of those cracks. But I have since then also come up with, or at least reinforce some of the points that you guys had made, and actually they landed a bit harder for me as well. So first things first, we said in the previous episode, which is just not true, that there is very little stuff happening in the environment that is sort of showing you the passage of time, like how is the day progressing and that sort of thing. It's obscene, but like in almost every single point of view, there's a reference to like where the sun is in the sky and like how tired everyone. Like there is actually a lot that tells you exactly how long the battle took. So when they leave Far Madding, the sun has just risen. It's a pale golden ball just risen above the horizon. So that's them leaving Far Madding after Cadsuane had gotten Rand. And then when Elsa looks at Rand and Nynaeve glowing like the sun, now at Shadow Logoth, she thinks to herself, it will begin, Cadsuane says to them, okay, it will begin soon. They'll be feeling that in Tarvalon and maybe the other side of the world. Everyone take your places. And this is, I think, the crux of what the actual battle strategy that is on display here is being conveyed to us, right? This whole chapter is not about how crafty the Forsaken are in getting up to Rand and overcoming all these defenses and like being really, really battle hardened. What I realized rereading this is the whole thing is about how effective Cadsuane's defensive strategy of Rand and Nynaeve was. If you think about it, there is a bunch of Forsaken converging on this point, and it's the first time that the forces of the light are actually fighting the Forsaken directly and beating them, right? Like these are multiple Forsaken. So like Cadsuane sets up this defensive perimeter, like Cadsuane herself does the shield over Rand, and then I'll get to the groups of people in a moment, but then she has these satellite teams that go out on very particular patrols and stuff. So she has a plan. And we can see it play out here. So Cadsuane stays with Rand, but also Maurice, who is one of Cadsuane's original, like my shorthand in these notes is Cadsuane's posse, right? So these are the Aes Sedai that arrived in Cairhien when Cadsuane arrived out of nowhere. So Maurice is from Cadsuane's posse. Narishma with Kalandor and Elza Penfell, the kidnapper Black Arja Aes Sedai who, swore is compelled to get Rand to the final battle, blah, blah, blah. So that's a really powerful group with Narishma, who's a powerful channeler, with Kalandor, and then Maurice and Elza as well, in a circle, all joined. So they are there. Cadsuane is by herself. She's not linked to anyone. She's just pointing with her little thing. They have so much power with them. They can attack the Forsaken at long distance, right? So when... We'll get to it, but that's so like they're basically like a tower, like a defensive tower, like a howitzer or something, like sitting up on this hill right at the point of danger. And while Cadsuane is effectively checking the radar, seeing where channeling events are happening, she's pointing this massive gun that they have on this hill with Kalandor and just making explosive lines of fire go out towards those points. Then the other groups are Serene, who's one of the sworn kidnapper Aes Sedai, Corell, who's from Cadsuane's posse, and they link with Dharma Flynn. Then there's Nezun, who's a sworn kidnapper, so sworn kidnapper Aes Sedai from Doom as well, so a sworn fealty to Rand. Beldine, who's also a sworn kidnapper, who was that young Aes Sedai without the ageless look yet. Daijian, who's from Cadsuane's posse and really, really weak in the power, but she is bonded to Eben Hopwell, also joins that circle. So you've got Hopwell, Nezun, Beldine, and Daijian. And then another group with Varen, Kumira, who is from Catswain's posse, and Shalon, who's the Windfinder, really, really powerful Windfinder. And then Olivia is on her own. So you've got the Maurice group on the hill, and then 4 other attacking groups out in the field, right? So they're all going out to try and push away anyone that approaches the hill. So the first Forsaken we see become aware of the cleansing is Sindain. And that's when she's, interrogating or talking to that dark friend. And she immediately thinks, so he found another woman to use the access key. She would have faced the Creator with him. He had spurned her love. He had spurned her. So it's just about as blatant a reveal about Sindain being Lanfear as you can get, right? Then we switch back to Catswain, who's using a Terangriel, pointing Elsa, Maurice, and Narishma the direction of any channeling that coincides with an attack on the shield she's woven over them. So she's got the shield. She senses channeling. Only if she senses channeling at the same time that lightning or an attack is hitting her shield, she knows it's an enemy because her own people could be channeling out there. So when she senses those two things together, she goes, okay, attack. And then they do these because they can't tell exactly how far away, just the direction. So it's this long line of explosive fire, like throwing trees and stuff into the air. It's like these massive, massive, hugely draining attacks, obviously, but super, super long distance. So when she does the first one, she points at the forest and then they attack. Okay, so she knows it's not one of her own people because she felt an attack at the same time. And then immediately the bird turns and she points to Shadow Logoth itself. And then they attack in that direction. Then it's a quick check-in with Rand, who's just holding on for dear life, before we check in with Demandred, who steps through a gateway into Shadow Logoth. That's the attack that turned Catswain's attention. So those two events are linked, right? So it's not just like some time has passed and now, there's also an attack in Shadow Logoth. It goes from Catswain pointing the team into the forest to pointing to Shadow Logoth, where Demandred has just appeared. He notes, as he's looking around, that the sun indicated mid-morning. So now we're not at sunrise anymore, but the city made it feel like it was already nearing nighttime. Immediately, a fire erupts in the forest near the city and it speeds towards where he is standing, throwing trees into the air. He notes that his weaves are inverted for caution's sake, so nobody should be able to see him. He's running and stumbling through snow and he's tripping and he's thinking that these weaves should not be detectable to anyone since they were inverted, and deduces that Rand must have a Terangriel that tells him where someone has channeled. The attacks are just too precise. He's about to turn back towards Rand when he spots Dharma Flynn, Serene, and Karel. He hesitates to kill them, regardless of who they are, because channeling would draw the attention of Rand, because he thinks it's Rand doing it, or as we know, his protectors. So when Dharma throws a weave at Demandred, the Forsaken is shocked at how powerful he is. He finds himself frantically trying to fend off Flynn's attacks. He thinks of himself as a general, and that generals do not fight alongside those he commands. So he retreats to wait for either one of the other Forsaken to kill Rand, or for him to find a gap to do it himself when Rand's protectors tire out. So Demandred is already, he's got a Terangriel sensing where I can be. I can't teleport around and get anywhere near him, and I can't even channel at these people who are attacking me because I'm going to be attacked. So he's running and falling around in the forest. He's not having a good time at all. He has to go hide and wait for a time to go, or hope someone else kills Rand. And then switch to Agenor, who's also running frantically and hating it. We spoke about how Agenor was not built for, I think Agenor thinks to himself as well, spending time as Corlin Deshiva is not a lot of fun and didn't make him any more fond of running. He thinks on how he's not a soldier, he's more a scientist. The Trollocs and the Madral were what made him famous. He knows the others are there too, and he'd hoped that they had finished Rand off already, but clearly had not. The forest is too dangerous for a genius, as he thinks. The only thing spurring him on is his fear of Moradin and the Dark One, and he notes it's not quite midday yet. If one of the others doesn't kill Rand, maybe he would have a chance at being a hero. We then switch to Varen, who spots Grandal skulking through the forest in a streethed dress. Varen tries to shield her, but is shocked when the woman seems to be already embracing Saidar and counterattacks with immense strength, and then Varen starts fighting for her own life. Switch to Ibn Hopwell. He notes that the sun has passed its zenith, so now we're in the afternoon. They encounter Arangar, and Ibn throws himself at her physically, since Daijian is controlling the circle and therefore all the flows as well. So Ibn can't channel. The only thing he knows to do is to throw himself at Halima. Then back to Sindain, who encounters Olivia. She thinks again on the sense of battles being fought. So she's sensing all these battles being fought nearby, which makes her nervous and hopeful at the same time. So this is Lanfear feeling nervous about what's happening around them. She decides to kill Olivia with a knife so that she doesn't have to channel. But if this woman is a wilder, she's going to prepare something for her, she's just being very, very cautious. And then when Olivia embraces the source, Sindain throws the readied fireball at her, but it's a very small fireball because she doesn't want her channeling to be sensed. So even in this attack, she's being cautious. It's enough to burn a hole through her, but it is a very small channeling. And then obviously when the weave hits her and it dissipates, she thinks to herself, she's never even heard of a Terangriel, because that's the only thing that could be doing this, that can make a weave dissipate like that. Then the woman struck back at her and she suffered her second shock. She was stronger than Sindain had been before she was held by the elfin and the Eelfin. So Olivia has a pretty powerful ter'angreal and was already as strong as Lanfear was originally, right? So Olivia is most powerful level of female channeler, and she's got the rings with the bracelet. So Sindain is shocked. Not only are the weaves dissipating against her, but this woman is more powerful than she is. And the only thing pushing her forward at this moment is her hatred of Lews Therin and wanting to kill him. So no fear of Moradin or anything like that is coming up. It's just that. So, Olivia is posing at this point too much of a threat for her. Then we switch to Moghedien on a wooded hilltop. Not very near the access key. This was as close as she was intended on getting. Only the threat of Moradin stroking the mine trap had even made her travel here, and she had delayed as long as possible, hoping that the others would finish things up. Even though she arrived at quite a distance, she had already had to flee an attack. She notices the fiery attacks of Saidar coming from Elza, Marisa, and Narishma. So it's with Kalandor in the mix that they're able to throw such hectic attacks at a distance. And part of the fiery attacks is the multiple plumes of smoke against the mid-afternoon sun, right? So there is regular mentions of where we are in the day. She thinks how she rocked up here late because she was delaying, hoping that something would happen, right? She has no intention of participating. She thinks how she doesn't care who lives or dies, but actually, if she's honest, it would be great if either Grendel or Sindain or both of them would die. Not Rand, not the Aes Sedai or anything. She wants the other Forsaken to die, and she just slinks back into the forest and sits there to watch from afar. Then there's a quick check-in with Rand. He's just screaming in his head. Lews Therin is screaming, everything is bad, everything is terrible. Then we jump out of Rand's head to Cadsuane and Min, who are standing right next to him, observing them. Cadsuane is exhausted, having held the shield for most of the day. There'd not been an attack on the hilltop for some time. The Black Dome is 1,000 feet tall, so 300 meters. Rand is sitting in exactly the same position he was at the start, an unmoving statue, but the sweat rolling down his face. So like Jody was saying, you can't really write a chapter about that, a man sitting like a statue and people screaming in his head. That's about the sum total of what he's experiencing. Nynaeve, on the other hand, completely collapses, and Cadsuane lessens the power channeled into the shield above them to heal Nynaeve. So Cadsuane is so confident that the attacks have slowed down, there haven't been any for ages, that she's willing to lessen the amount of shield above her to use what meager skill she has at healing to heal Nynaeve. Almost done, guys. Hang in there. It's taken Agenor hours to finally sneak up to the hill closely enough to make out the people on it. He's been skulking since that morning. When we last checked in with him, it was not yet noon, and now it's well into the afternoon. He's thinking grandiose thoughts of taking Kalandor for himself and being named Bliss after he kills Rand, so he prepares balefire. But Elza, right? She drew as hard as she could on Kalandor and Jahar's hands. Saidin seemed well suited to destruction to her. A huge ball of coruscating fire surrounded the other hilltop, red and gold and blue. When it was gone, that other hill ended in a smooth surface 50 feet lower than the old crest. So huge fireball using all the strength of a multi-Saidin Saidar circle with Kalandor in it. Then back to Moghedien, who's surprised at herself for staying so long. There could only be about 2 hours of daylight left, she thinks to herself. She can't feel Saidar anywhere other than through the access key. The battle was over. The other Forsaken, either dead or fleeing, defeat. The dome is 2 miles high at this point, so 300 meters before to now 3 kilometers. It implodes in an instant and the vacuum sucks everything closer, including Moghedien. And then switch to Cadsuane. It's done. She drops the melted female access key. She notes the sun is on the horizon when she's looking at the hole where Shadar Logoth used to be. So it was literally from sun up to sundown with regular intervals to tell us how the day is progressing. Flynn is healing Beldine, who obviously took some damage in their fight against Arangar. She, Daijian, Nezun, and Eben had faced Halima and driven them off, but not without heavy losses. Olivia had a broken arm seared to the bone from her battle with Sindain. What I didn't mention before is in their battle, when they start fighting each other, the ground starts heaving beneath their feet. So they start channeling really, really powerful weaves at each other and have quite a big battle that, to Jody's point, we didn't get to see. Corell and Dharma are obviously still alive, and Serene almost died in their fight with Demandred and was taking it heavily. Dharma thinks she's just tired, but that could be because he needed to actually heal her in the field, right? So in their fight with Demandred, he may have had to heal her, and that's why she's physically tired. Chimera died in the fight with Grendel, and of course Eben died in the encounter with Halima. So to me, that whole chapter is basically showing the first real major battle between the light and the shadow power wielders. Right? We've seen Trolloc battles and other Shadow Spawn with single channelers, but here's Cadsuane's defensive system, and it drove away several Forsaken. With Elsa, Maurice, and Narishma wielding Calandor, they could attack outward from Catspan's shield of protection, while the satellite groups hunted and chased away would-be attackers, who were Demandred, presumably driven off by Dharma Flynn, Grandal, driven off by Varen, Arangar, driven off by Eben's group, Osangar, killed by Elsa, Maurice, and Narishma, Margidian, who just opted out, and Sindain, driven off by Olivia. So of those, we don't see Demandred being driven off, and we don't see Grandal being driven off at all. We see very little of Grandal. Varen tries to shield her to capture her, and then Grandal has got all these inverted weaves and like slicing them up, and then suddenly Varen has to fight for her life. So actually, when we last see Grandal and Varen, it seems like Grandal might actually be, having the upper hand. And then who else did we not see? Osangar, which was Agenor, we saw killed, and Halima. We don't really know how she was driven off after Ibn sort of like jumped at her and was killed. We don't know how that battle panned out. So for me, long story short, and thanks for sitting through all of that, it actually was a much cooler battle when I looked at it from the point of view of it being Cadsuane's plan for how they're going to defend this thing, because it worked. But you guys are absolutely right in that it is unsatisfactory that you don't see Demandred, Sindain, Grandal, and Arangar, Halima, actually get turned away. When you leave them, it's like the battle's just begun. And then the next thing or the last thing you hear about it is just the healing of the wounds that the teams took. And I think that is the single biggest omission in that thing. Like, it is too big a leap from they're starting a fight to, we're all injured, but don't worry, we drove them off. Like that to me is the part that is unsatisfying.
You've just completely convinced me that my opinion is correct. I'm standing by absolutely everything. Time-stamped. You took quarter of an hour. I could have reread the whole chapter and be just as confused in the lack of good ending of this book.
Okay, well, here's a couple of extra notes then. Missing from this fight, Messana, Semirag, and Moradin himself. Right? I think Semirag and Messana were also supposed to be at that meeting where Moradin rocks up and he burns the rat and he tells them kill Rand when he tries to cleanse Saidin. The rest of the Forsaken that are dead forever are Asmodean, Ravin, Belal, and Samael. Those guys were never going to join. But they faced and chased off 6 Forsaken. I think that's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, chasing off 6 Forsaken, but also you don't know. Maybe they just got hungry because it took all bloody day. And they're like, stuff this, I'm going to go grab a Macca's burger and just get over this now because this is just not worth the battle anymore.
I think the Demandred one is okay, but the Grandal one, Halima, and Sindain, I would have liked to see how exactly they were turned away. You can assume, but it is very open, to your point, too open-ended. But all the other points we made about the battle and about how scattershot it is and not cohesive and stuff, I've turned around on that. You guys had me convinced last time, but I think it is actually quite a well laid out and effective delivery.
To what end? We taking this out of the perspective of rereads and deep diving. Mm-hmm. And even for me, out of the perspective of reread and deep diving, it leaves me underwhelmed. It leaves me confused. And I think if you just picking up a fantasy series and you love reading and you're one of those people, I think typically of Yanni, your cousin's wife, she reads like a champ. So she will sit and finish a book in a week, like one of these. And she'll read this series in a couple of months all the way through. She's going to go like, this is just confusing. I'm just going to carry on to the next one and see if there's explanations forthcoming, which we know there isn't too much of regarding this major event, the cleansing of the source.
It took me going back after we had a lengthy conversation about it and rereading it and writing down notes and stuff to actually pull some of those things together. So you're right. Like it's a lot to take in while at the same time not giving us enough.
Yes. Okay, maybe that is can you use that as a tactic and now I'm delving into writing books or the structure of structuring a book, especially if you know the vastness of the story and the volumes to come. that this becomes a method of getting a lot of information passed through and delivered, even letting it be somewhat chaotic and unexplained to make yourself, I mean, there's so much off-page things that we interpret and that gets raised in forums after the fact. Can it be part of the structure of writing? Can it be part of the delivery to make you fill the gaps? Extract what you want and let your imagination do the rest of the work.
I think there's definitely a place for it. I think what you and Jody originally, and now me as well, is sort of like hungering for is a lot of these antagonists and protagonists are people that we are very invested in because they are central to the story, right? Like the Forsaken have been built up as these like, hectic foes and everything. If it was some unnamed soldier or like a captain of the Queen's Guard or like, whatever, then you wouldn't mind like things happening off page. But like these are people that we don't necessarily, well, Jody and I don't care for them. You care about them a lot, but like you're invested in them and you do want to hear exactly what happens with them. So it is disappointing when characters that you're so invested in have these major encounters off screen or off page. And you're just like, oh, that feels like a missed opportunity for us to enjoy it even more. Joe, do you have any thoughts?
What he said.
Pipe down, Jody. Jesus.
Jeez, Jody, just keep it all in.
Okay, my last callback, then we can move on to listener contributions, is that Dashiva is only 100% revealed here in Winter's Heart. So, like with so many things, there are loads of clues, like we said about Zindane before as well, but the most notable one is a cool one in Path of Daggers, when Rand says that no one stands toe-to-toe with the Dragon Reborn. Even the Forsaken can tell you that. Right, Dashiva? And Dashiva flinches because Agenor has learned that firsthand, right? Like he's died right in front of the Dragon Reborn. So that was cool. I think we spoke about that comment, like just briefly, but like specifically the way that Robert Jordan does so well, like knowing what you know and then reading that line is like, oh, fuck, that makes so much sense. But the first time you read it, it would completely go over your head. Dashiva flinching at that comment could mean anything, which is, part of why we love it so much. Alrighty, we have one listener contribution today, and that is from Scott Wilson, who says, I started reading The Wheel of Time in 1991. Rand and the gang feel like old friends. I think that is the power of good stories, as Tom might say. You guys have joined that group for me. I'm really enjoying this reread more than previous ones. I don't have anyone around me that likes the genre, so it's great to have someone to interact with. Thanks, guys.
That's awesome. This is why we...
Yeah.
And,
such a pleasure, Scott.
Nerd out
it's like therapy
about how it could have been done better.
Totally a nerd support group.
Insert a gif of comic book guy right now.
I can't wait to read your series of fantasy novels, Vol. Then Scott goes on to say, because remember, Scott, well, you might not remember, but Scott had sent in a message saying that it was funny to him how Matt was thinking about what women say, like they would, about, I inferred that Scott was saying Matt was a liar or lying to get women into bed. And Scott is just clarifying, saying, no, I wasn't calling Matt a liar. I just think he was feeling put out by women doing to him the same thing that he does to them. He also says, also, sorry, Mo, but I agree with Gerald about Cadsuane. I think the reason Nynaeve didn't think, one point, I think you meant to say, Scott, that you also agree with Jody, who is a very vocal Cadsuane hater. And then Scott raises a great point. I think the reason Nynaeve didn't think a little channeling would go unnoticed, or thought that a little channeling would go unnoticed, is because she had actually done it once before when telling Rand about the well. When Nynaeve comes back from being outside of town with Cadsuane and learning what the well is, she brushes Rand's cheek with a flow of air. And nothing happens. They're at the inn. And no one had done anything.
Okay, that actually slipped me completely. Okay.
Me too, but I remember reading it, but I never put two and two together until Scott said this. So, like,
were they definitely inside the perimeters of the city at that time?
They were in the inn.
In the inn. Okay.
Yes.
So, what I would say to that is perhaps you have to go over one vault.
Yeah.
Let's call it one
minimum
one
threshold
dar
for detection.
There's a dar reading, and then
So this nullifies the point that I made before, because I was saying that I think that Cadswain had told Nynaeve that if she channels in the city, the Guardian will tell them where she is and they will come for her, because she's not supposed to be channeling in the city. Because Nynaeve had said, I only channeled a little bit, I didn't think it would matter. To me implies that she knew that channeling more than that would result in something, and therefore she has been given this knowledge. But she channeled a little bit earlier, and if Cadswain had told her, do not channel in the city, this is a well, this is how it works, don't channel in the city, because they have a Terungal called the Guardian that A, stops most people from being able to channel, and B, tells them exactly where the channelers are. Nynaeve just immediately after coming from Cadswain comes back to the inn and channels to show Rand what it is. So maybe Cadswain didn't actually tell her. So back to Jody's being justified in hating on Cadswain. She should have told Nynaeve.
As it should be.
I wonder, did they use the Guardian to catch a lot of, kids that's born wilders, can have a bright fight with their sister,
send them off
and
to
then
the
all of
tower,
a sudden just channel a toy across the room?
Well, they can't, because the Guardian prevents them from channeling. The only reason Cadswain and Nynaeve are channeling is because they have a well.
Yes, that's right. Sorry. So what do those kids? They just prevent it from channeling and then go insane and just die when they walk out the city?
Cadswain and Varen are both from Far Madding, so if they leave the city, maybe they find out.
Right. I'm not gonna dig deep into that can of fish.
Scott's last comment here.
Cans of fish.
The super fermented ones.
Yeah.
The stinky ones.
People vomit in the cans. All right, sorry.
The last thing Scott says here is Burnt Cats sounds like a great rock band name. Need the t-shirt. I said we can count on Willie for a constant stream of band names.
Oh, Burnt Cats.
Yes. All right, let's get on with it. I know you guys are champing at the bit to get into this exciting prologue, but let's quickly take a look back at previously on Blood and Ashes. This is one of my new revised, super streamlined recaps, so don't get too worried.
No, you better not recap after that 18 minutes recap of the whole last chapter.
I'm going to recap. I'm going to add what I read about that last chapter just to the end of previously on Blood and Ashes.
Oh boy.
Rand and Lan try to assassinate Torval and Gedwyn, but walk into a trap set by Fane. The rogue Ashaman are already dead. Fane tries to attack Rand, and Torum Righton appears, but is eventually dispatched by Lan off-page. Fane escapes, and the city guard appear in force, making Rand and Lan attempt an escape across the rooftops. They both fall and are knocked unconscious and taken into custody. When Rand wakes up in a dark cell, he takes an emotional hit and has to stop himself from losing his mind in another black box. Meanwhile, before Nynaeve can do something foolish immediately after the men fall from the roof, Cadswain, Olivia, and Min drag her from the scene of the crime to plan the next move. That move is to bully the councils into letting Rand go with Cadswain instead of handing him over to Elida. They succeed by Cadswain and Nynaeve using their wells to scare the councils, and it works, and they leave with Rand and Lan in their care. Later, the combined party leaves Far Madding, collects Calandor, buried in the forest, and they travel to Shadow Logoth. Rand and Nynaeve set up to cleanse Sidene, while Cadswain sets up a perimeter defense and orchestrates the resistance to the Forsaken. Demandrid, Sindane, Ossengar, Arangar, Grendel, and Margideon all arrive independently and are unable to penetrate Cadswain's ring of defense. After a day of channeling, Rand and Nynaeve are successful. Shadow Logoth is utterly destroyed, and so is the female access key to the Kudenkaal. On Tramelking, the Amayar see the Kudenkaal freak out, declare it the end of the time of illusion, and all commit a mass suicide. Now, on to Crossroads of Twilight. Into the prologue. Oh, wait a minute. Did the prologue have a name?
Yes.
I only wrote prologue.
Crossroads of bullshit.
It's called Bittersweet Moments in Life.
Oh, no, it's even more generic than that. Glimmers of the Pattern.
Oh, God.
Now, as we said before, this is actually split into 8 points of view. So I've split up the 7 points of view. I've split those up between the guys. So, Willie, why don't you give us the first one from Rodel Ituralde?
Now, there just isn't a lot to dig out of this. Rodel sitting in the snow, waiting for his scout to give him the all clear. While he's sitting there, he's got a lot of time to think. And so did RJ, because he wrote a lot of shit while he was thinking.
Okay.
Which got me to sort of like, what is happening here, jumping on the internet. And this was like, back in the early day, a little bit of an extra giveaway. this whole prologue. It was released before the book I read somewhere. So it's kind of like Patreon subscriber bonus edition issue. So if you don't subscribe and you don't get it, you still don't lose the whole plot point, because you're still following the main feed.
If I'm not wrong, Vil, I think it was actually sold. Like, it wasn't even just released. I think people had to pay for it.
Yes, that's what I mean. The subscribe, something like that.
Because, I mean, there's been other times where they've released a first chapter or first couple chapters. I don't know for Wheel of Time, but certainly for some of Brandon Sanderson's other books. But for this one, I think what added to the whole slog narrative was people's displeasure at having to pay for the prologue, and then there also being quite a gap between the prologue and the book release or something along those lines.
I'm still feeling the displeasure today, and I didn't even buy it as a separate magazine article. Anyway, he's in the snow. He is thinking back about the letters from his King Salman, Al Salam, Al Salam. And he eventually gets his scout that comes through. I noted his name, Donjal.
Jalam.
No. Jalam is the armsman of one of the other lords that's turned dragon sworn. That is Lord Shimron. Anywho, these are men from Aradoman, and we've got some Tarrabonas there, and they're having a little truce meeting under the white flag or white ribbon. They could have just as well said white flag, to discuss putting their own battles and their own disagreements aside, so that they can fight the common enemy. As the saying goes, enemy of my enemy is my friend, so that they can agree to take on the Seanchan, who has now taken control of Tarabon, Altara, and Amadesia. Am I correct in saying that? Not so much the eastern states. They started going full
the Bible Belt
West
in
first.
Randland. Randland.
And that is generally the gist of his point of view.
Is that the end of it, Willie?
That is what I'm going to extract out of it, because I mean I can go into the 50 pages that it is.
It's not 50 pages. It's one of the shorter ones.
It was 50 hours. I think I fell asleep 7 times and I wake up and it's still going.
It's because you're falling asleep with your face on the pause button.
Chime in.
Joseph.
You guys try
Joseph,
and make
have you got
it.
Don't ask me. I don't know. I read this and it wasn't one of my points of view, so I just read it once and then moved on with my life.
Okay.
He's back. He's confused. He's running all over the place. He's getting, because we know that Moghedian is writing those letters?
Grendel.
One of the. I always mix those two up. Grendel's writing that letter and confusing him, just making him run around in circles. And that's the gist.
He has been fighting battles all over the shop.
But sometimes he gets something done, isn't it? Right? Like this one time, there was actually a good instruction.
No, there was an interception. A grey man killed Lady Tove, whatever her name was.
We see Grendel orchestrate that exact attack and the delivery of this message. We see that from Grendel's point of view in a previous book.
Yes, that's correct.
What Rodel thinks to himself is the orders from the king could not have been better written to cause chaos, which is exactly what Grendel is doing. Right? So Aradoman is where Grendel has set up shop. Elida had actually, at some point during the events of the Fires of Heaven, Elida had Al-Salam kidnapped and taken to an unknown location in the Caroline grass, where he remained until shortly before the last battle.
Is that the
has actually
incident
been
where he
without
was
king.
rolled up in a carpet and carried out and spotted that he was carried out? Something like that.
I think so. I think so. Yeah, someone was rolled up in a carpet. Was that Matin Stepanios?
Lots of kings being rolled up in carpets.
There's a lot of kings
times.
rolled up in carpets and kidnapped in this, and you don't hear much about them. They here and there write a letter, but not in their own hand. So they're just kind of like this character of power that can send instruction, and the Forsakens using their hand And I still remember the Grandal chapter was so specific about faking someone's hand, writing, the skill involved in it, and everything else. So, I mean, what he's doing right there and then is just sort of a clarification of all these things that has happened, weird instruction, running into battles, chaotic scenes in Aradomon, and the splitting of them, and then saying, okay, cool, common enemy, Shonshan. Let's wave a flag of truce so that we can not have flying beasts over us and new lords.
So, first of all, I'm just excited to be reading about one of the great captains, right? So this is Rodel Ituralde, legendary general, rocking up on the scene. This is the first time we're reading about him directly. He plays a pretty pivotal role in the oncoming battles, and he's a major part of the battle, not the final battle, or in the final battle as well, but like the forces of the light, right? Like he's obviously one of the great captains, and therefore will be of quite a lot of use. I don't know if you guys remember, Kerry set me off on a tangent in one of the previous episodes talking about Rodel Ituralde, and specifically here where we see him thinking about the king's orders being confusing and stuff, and reading about that battle that he orchestrated where he lured the Shonshan into a city by having civilians dressed as soldiers, like running ahead of the army and the army following them into the city. But weeks before, he had actually positioned all of his soldiers in this abandoned city, and then they attack from the buildings because he knew that the Shonshan were only getting the reports from the Raken, who look at everything from above. So they couldn't see any of the soldiers and stuff hiding in the city. So it's like this genius plan where he beat insurmountable odds. What he's talking about here to these other people is exactly that plan. So this is the beginning of that plan. So he says to them something along the lines of like, hopefully if this plan plays out, the general's chasing them, it'll be too late for them to realize what's going on. But if they do catch on to anything, he's got another plan. And that's just fucking cool, right? Like here's this like military mega genius with all these great plans, one of which we already know about, and he's got another plan up his sleeve just in case that one.
I mean, there's already sort of a prelude to that in the sense that he is referencing the flying animals. He's got air support down. So I mean, you're getting all a little bit of tidbits of that, but again, written in a way that you no idea of what it is. So at the moment, I almost feel that it becomes lost in obscurity.
For a first-time reader, which we are not, and which this podcast is not aimed at, right? Like, sure, I can understand those criticisms from a first-time reader. I'm specifically excited because I'm seeing here the green shoots of this like genius plan, right? So I'm like, this chapter excites me. See things like Rodel knows that when he pulls on his earring, that is commonly known as a sign that he's getting angry. But sometimes he uses that to his advantage. He might not be angry, but does it anyway to make people think that he is. You know, like that's the level of tactician that he is. Like he is using his own body language to get, people to behave in a certain way. And you can see him like analyzing when the people are talking, like, people spoke up behind him. So he's clearly their leader. And then when people grumbled when he says something, okay, maybe he's not as strong a leader as he thought, like he's analyzing all the pieces on the board all the time. And I don't know, I just thought that was rad. Also, his horse has got a cool name.
What was it again? Can't remember now.
Dart.
That's right. Very.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yes, because I read that first line. Dart-nosed him or something. There was a sentence in the book. Okay. I had to read it like 10 times. I was like, I don't understand I don't know what these words mean. Without realizing he was talking about his horse. And I was like, dart-nosed? Dart-nosed? Such a hyphenated word. I couldn't figure it out.
And also Jalam, that's one of the characters here that apparently sort of knows Ituralde. Like they're sort of talking and he makes a joke at one point sort of at his expense, but the men sort of laugh. I think we are supposed to get invested in Jalam and know who he is because later he dies.
Yes, there you go.
Okay, so that's it. First point of view, done. For me, that's 1 out of 1. It's a big check mark. Rad. Rodel Ituralde being a rad general. Here we go.
All right. It's done.
So can I just go straight into the next horrible one?
Horrible Yes, possibly one of the vilest characters in the series. Eamon Valda.
This guy and this everything we read about here is summed up by the opening of it. It just smells foul and putrid. Well, it's insinuated that's the shit of 9,000 men in poorly dug latrines, but Eamon Valda is now in this army camp of his with 9,000 strong men, and he is going to meet up with what is his name now?
Radam
Asunawa, and they discussing the witches. Okay, let me read my notes. Maybe I'll better understand it.
Good idea.
Maybe that will help because
you made them. You might as well read them.
Okay. Valda muses to himself about the loss of Morghese. And with the loss of Morghese, it also affected the use of Galad, because Galad was only a lever with the leverage of his mom. And now that sort of plan and with that also the aspirations of Galad is kind of like, okay, cool, we don't need to keep him close at hand anymore, which I think is
idiot.
Yeah.
Galad is like a great soldier and a great swordsman and a leader of men and smart and stuff and loyal, like it's another window into like how bad a judge of character Valda is, right? Like he makes
it's how bad it's organization they are. Like they want to control through power. I mean, so Asunawa is the head. What are they? Questioners, and he demands, to be treated differently to the rest. I mean, the men are camping, and I think the reference to the stench is that they pretty much living in squalor conditions, but Asunawa is in the only good building, and it's all kind of like set up for him. He has to have all these comforts, and Valda sort of like inwardly has a reaction or a sniggering about that. But the big topic for Valda is how do they use what the Seanchan uses to tame the witches, and I think that is more sort of my take out of this. Like, it's about Aes Sedai and about the control that the Seanchan has on the channelers. Like, can this be used for the Children of the Light in terms of controlling them? Yeah, Council of the Anointed. They all arrive for the meeting there as well. And discussing the witches. I don't know. Pick something more out there for me because I'm sparse on it.
Did you get anything out of that, Joe? Any notes? Valda is a dick.
I got one
Moving
note.
on.
I like how these Andoran noble males are just utterly useless to anyone if they're not because of his mother. There's a Gawyn chapter. Billy gets it later as well. Like Elidas is like, once I'm dead, what use are you to me now?
Yeah. Expelled from the city.
Yeah, fuck you. And look at this guy as well, Galad as well. Nah, without his mom, what use is he?
What Valda does not know is that Galad will be the one that kills him.
I'm looking forward to that. Really.
Oh, me too.
Really looking forward to that.
That's the little silver lining from this prologue. One day you will die. Excellent.
Oh, yes.
Well.
All right. Well, Joe, if that's it, then I'll quickly rattle off mine. I've got a couple here. They are 9,000 Whitecloaks, which doesn't seem like that many men in these times of armies, right? Like,
no.
Egwene has like 50,000 men, Rand has hundreds of thousands. I mean, 9,000 men is not nothing, but you think like Valda. Sorry for you, Vil, but Valda thinks to himself, a man who saw clearly could make much out of that in times like these. So he's not scared, he knows, okay, he's got 9,000 armed men. He's going to do something with that, and he's going to, wrench power from someone else and start building another force of his own. They refer to the fall of the Fortress of the Light as the disaster, capital D. It's pretty cool. I'm glad that they feel it so badly they gave it a name. He also thinks to himself that regular Whitecloaks distrusted the questioners, but Valda seemed to think that they used to despise, or that the regular Whitecloaks despised the questioners, except for Asunawa for some reason. And that had taken Valda by surprise when he learned it. Like, so I don't know if this is going to play out later. I think Valda actually does. I won't speculate here, but I think that what this is showing us is just that Valda, like we were just saying about Galad earlier, like he has a lot of assumptions. Like he thinks he knows exactly what's going on, but he doesn't actually. So he's very sure of his information, but it's bad. So that's a weakness.
That is something that we've established as well throughout the flow of the books earlier. I mean, we have these spots where we deal with the management of the Whitecloaks, their treachery, their betraying, their stupidity of the Force will advance at a trot into a fucking death trap. We know all of this now. So for me, this little point of view, and I'm saying, okay, what am I supposed to take out of this? Little snippets to the future. Okay, they know that Aes Sedai can be controlled by a device. They're super keen to find out. They'll probably come to the wrong conclusion at some point in time and drink Forkroot themselves or something. Like,
I mean, they're already off to a bad start because this device that controls the Aes Sedai requires someone that can channel to use it, right? So like they're just misinformed. Another thing he talks about here is how, like, okay, so the whole plan with Morghason taking over Andor is over and done with now because she's probably been killed by the Seanchan or made a slave because they don't really give any credence to any titles except their own. Incorrect. They're keeping the kings and queens in there. They just say, swear the oaths, serve us, and you continue to rule here. So, like, I mean, that's not 100% honoring necessarily the position, but it's not like they're just killing people willy-nilly. They are using the power structures that are already in place to their advantage, fair enough, but they are acknowledging them and, you know, like for Tylan, you know, like actually expanding her level of influence to beyond just the city.
It's a double wicket there because he's not only wrong about what the Seanchan's doing, he's wrong about the capabilities of Morghaze being quite intelligent and knowing what she needs to do, realizing how trapped she was and doing something about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's
so just wrong.
He's
but cocksure, right?
Like, absolutely headstrong. Like, I am Eamon fucking Valda, and I am correct. I am on the right path. So, if anything,
which tells us a lot.
This is the portion that just grated me the most.
All right, so he says that since the Andor plan went bust, he's got another plan. So I'm keen to see what this plan actually ends up being. He confirms that they're still in Amadicia, which is probably quite dangerous for them, considering it's fully occupied by the Seanchan. So Abila, the town where Perrin was meeting with the Prophet and where the things with the Shido sort of kicked off and stuff, it's just like straight up the highway from Amador, you know, a little ways from the border to Gildan. So like Amadicia is also not a big country. So like they are, like you said, really, maybe not living in squalor, but like their latrines are like not deeply dug. They're like very shallow and stuff, you know, like if the soldiers aren't watched, you know, they'll just kick a bit of dirt over where they took a shit and that sort of thing. Well, because I think they are being harried, right? Like they also have to they have to keep moving because they have to stay.
Yeah. I mean, it shows that, okay, we know what climate state they're in. It's cold, it's frozen, the ground is frozen. Digging a hole in frozen ground is hard work. So are they rushing? Are they moving quite fast? Or are they just poorly disciplined men? I mean, I'm gonna edge on the latter.
Bit of column A, bit of column B.
Yeah, a bit of both maybe. Poor decision making, poor movement, and poor planning. It kind of falls well into their general vibe.
Poor leadership.
There we go.
Well, like you said, leadership. What leadership?
Yeah, poor leadership.
Another thing they got wrong is like he says to us, like, you don't truly believe that the witches really have split, do you? Like, yes actually, Eamon, that's exactly what's. But like, don't be an idiot. Why would you believe that? It's probably just one of their tricks, just like another one of those bad assumptions on his part. But then the little point of view ends with him saying, you know, like he'll live to see the witches die or burn or whatever it is. But whether Asunawa sees that or not is another question. So he obviously has no plans to keep Asunawa alive. Orchestrated Pedro Denial's death, and is now probably plotting Asunawa's death as well. Because Asunawa also like sort of pushes back at him, right? Like he pulls rank on him, even though I think Eamon Valda at this point is
he's the leader. He's
the numero uno, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Asunawa's got his own aspirations. So,
all right. So
just need to die, and everything's much better.
I didn't mind that section. Actually, I liked checking in with the Whitecloaks again to see where they are, just to sort of, so they're not just this like ghost floating around off in the distance. And I'm glad to hear that Galad is still around.
I would like to see them advance at a trot into the ocean, the art of the ocean, and just don't stop. No boats needed. No. Maybe they can take out the sea folk. Those two can go have their own little party.
Take the
somewhere.
sea folk with you.
Take the sea folk with you, and just go to what's that altar? Tremalking. Go there.
Yeah, that whole island is empty now. You can take whatever you want.
There's houses. Go.
Houses. You just have to move all the dead bodies.
I just had an idea. Should we rate these POV sections out of 10? Give them each a rating out of 10.
Sure.
Rodel Ituralde?
Morris is going to give it 9.
I thought an 8.
Oh, right. I was close. Yeah, I would give it like a 6 or 7.
Okay. Phil?
I'm not feeling generous. When they generally have a score in a lot of sports and that, they throw out the bottom 2 and the top 2 to kind of get the better average. I'm going to have the throw out scores here today, I feel.
Okay.
But okay, Ituralde, great general. I love the bit about his towel with his ruby earring. Like there is some nice bits in there. I'll be generous and give it a solid 5.
His fake beauty spot with a little star.
Beauty spot was funny.
Yeah, a solid 5. Okay, 5 from you, 6.5 from Jody. You said both 6 and 7, and an 8 from me. Jody, what did you think of Eamon Valda out of 10? That's point POV.
Okay, you got to. Like, what are we judging just on the characters?
No.
Because then 0.
No, your enjoyment or value that you got out of it. Like, how did you experience it? Whether it's like from the Forsaken or a terrible character.
This is a neutral 5 for me.
Okay. Bill?
-11.
Okay.
Billy
is a dark friend, and the Whitecloaks are most diametrically opposed to him publicly, so it is Billy's sworn enemy.
I think the biggest part that I got out of there is just a reaffirmation of how lost they truly are. And not just through their bigger schemes and their thoughts of the Aes Sedai, but about the simple things. You have the son of a queen, a son of a ruler. His name in itself carries weight and clout. And you discard him because his mom's now not in your control anymore. Like that sort of decision making for me gives it a -11. It's just
okay, -11. All right. For me, I agree with everything that you said, except the value I get from it is much more. To me, that tells me a lot about Valda. So it's very informative, right? Like I find that to be enjoyable to read, that a character I dislike is so wrong so often. Like I enjoyed that. So for me, that was like a 7.
You like the top guy that they throw the scores out. Jody's gonna have the good medium here.
yes. Well, now we're really going to be tested. Now we're going to be tested. Now, those are some pretty out there ones. Now we're going to get back to some other characters we've already read about in scenarios we've already been in. Jody's got his hands on his face, rubbing his eyes. You are correct, Jody. You are up next with a delicious point of view from Gabrelle.
Gabrelle the Gazelle. She is with Tovine and Logain. Now, little recap of if you don't recall who these people are. They were sent there by Elida to deal with the Black Tower, ended up getting caught and bonded against their will into a much more, let's say, less free bond than the Warders.
Compliant.
More compliant bond. You will do as I say. Anyway, so they're out for one of their morning rides because Logain has bonded both Gabrelle and Tovine. And they are riding through the snow-covered forest. Imagine that, Willie. They're in the snow. And thinking a lot. So much thinking. Absolute think-a-thon going on here. 2 weeks have passed since she and 50 other Aes Sedai had been captured. Timeline for you all. And she's been living in the village that has grown up around the Black Tower and using her feminine wiles to try and get info out of Logain. And he's thoroughly enjoying it. They may seem cowed, but all 51 Aes Sedai are still trying to figure out how to destroy the Black Tower and keep their thoughts secret through the bond. So they still, whenever they see each other, going, we're still going to fuck this place up, right? And he's like, yeah, totally, 100%. All right, carry on. But they got to, be careful about it. And she's wondering as well, I didn't write this down, but I just remembered it, that he could have just, like Logain and all the others at Bond, just said, you may not do anything to harm the Black Tower, like, because as a command through the bond, and they would have to comply. But they didn't. So she's like, all right, well, I'm just going to keep working against you then to try and destroy this place. Anyway, speak of the devil, while she's doing all this thinking, Logain turns and gives her a reassuring smile. So he sensed her anxiety through the bond. Or has he sensed more than that? She's very unsure. Like, how much of this bond, like, does he know her thoughts? Is just feeling her feelings? What? Toveen, the reddest red ever, by the way, is fawning all over Logain, and it's kind of freaking Gabrelle out. Like, how can he not sense how fake she is through the bond? Maybe he can, and he's just like, I can tell how fake you are, so whatever, do what you want. So, yeah, they're all just trying to try and manipulate Logain, and, Gabrelle's also a bit taken aback by Toveen, her love of him, fawning all over him, because they also found out that, because he told everyone that the Aes Sedai set him up as a false, the Red Aja set him up as a false dragon, and what, all that's out as well. So she knows this, Toveen, and yet she's not too pissed off about it. Talking of feelings through the bond, Gabrelle is thinking of when she and Logain get it on, and how he lets the mask on the bond slip when passions rise, let's say. So just the thought of that makes her lose her composure a bit, and he senses it, but does not turn around this time. He only sends smugness through the bond to her, which I thought was cool. Just a little hehehe. I know what you're thinking. They are, thankfully for Gabrelle, interrupted by the arrival of a certain Atel Mishrael, another phenomenal douchebag Ashaman, one of Taim's cronies. He immediately cracks a joke about shagging Aes Sedai and calling Toveen plump, and it's not a good introduction to this guy. Gabrelle can feel the bond change to cold death as Logain warns him never to say that again. Like, you don't talk to my Aes Sedai. Atel ignores him, obviously, he doesn't give a shit, and lets him know that Taim has given Logain permission to go recruiting for new Ashaman. So, Logain has requested that he get out of there to go and locate some new recruits for the tower. Atel doesn't understand why Logain, a full Ashaman, would want to do that cuck job, but figures that Logain is just bored. But we know Logain has other plans by the last sentence of this prequel, I was going to say? Prologue, that's it.
Prologue.
So he suggests that Logain asked to join the Mikhail's private lessons, and Gabrelle feels a stab of fury through the bond at this. So that's a no then. Yeah, so they've been hearing about these private lessons. So this is all juicy news, but they know that Logain hates Taim and his cronies, and they know about the private lessons. They just don't know exactly what's going on. Like, what are they learning? None of Taim's men, his inner circle, are bonded to the Aes Sedai. It's mostly Logain's men, I suppose some other fence sitters. But none of that inner circle of bad dudes have any Aes Sedai with them, so it's hard to find out what's really going on. Atel is not getting the reaction out of Logain that he had hoped for, so he fucks off. Logain turns to them and announces they have to cut their ride short, and he has to go home and prep some stuff, and they head back to the village. Gabrelle is getting worried Gabrelle is getting worry and some hard thinking through the bond, so she knows that Logain is up to something. Now that he's got the news that he can leave, his planning has begun. Well, the execution of the plans. Toveen starts riding next to Gabrelle, all sneaky-like, and tells her, like, she has to get them on this guest list for whatever Logain is planning. Like, we have to go with him. And Gabrelle's like, duh. Like, I'm on it. Like, obviously we have to stay close to him. We're going to go with him. One more feeling she gets through the bond is that of determination. She's not sure on the specifics, but it's clear to her that Logain is riding to war. And that's the end of that point of view.
She thinks Logain was always determined, but now it felt hard and sharp like a knife. She felt like Logain Ablar was riding to war. Yeehaw.
Logain's not going to just take his little strolls in the snowy forest every morning. He doesn't trust this Taim dick.
He's very, very astutely clever for that. I mean, I wouldn't
And he has
trust
broad
him.
shoulders and long hair that turns all these Aes Sedai on, even the red ones.
Mm-hmm.
Logain arrives in Caemlyn in this prologue.
Yes, it's the last sentence of the prologue.
Yeah. So, hey, things are moving. Look, pacing, it's fine. One chapter.
You see, they were walking around in the snow, thinking to themselves, "What?"
And in the same chapter is arriving in Caemlyn. Great. What's not to like? Vil, do you have any notes about this Gabrelle point of view?
No, not really.
I am Jack's complete lack of surprise.
I'm gonna sit this one out like Joe does.
Okay, how's this for a random thought? I always find it interesting when people in Randland bring up lions, like Gabrelle does here, or even like the lion from the Lion Throne, right? Because she thinks of Logain, she gets a constant feel of controlled wariness. A hunting wolf might feel that way, or perhaps a lion. Where does Gabrelle know lions from? Like
the waste.
They're in the
There's
waste.
Lions in the waste. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, who's going to the waste and like encountering lions and coming back and talking about them in such a way that it's like common knowledge?
Maybe there used to be lions in Randland. Like the symbol of Madrid is a bear standing up on a tree.
No bears living there anymore.
Tons of bears around.
And there's no more trees.
There's no more trees now, so all the bears are just like wandering around aimlessly.
The bears are just lying on their side.
Yeah, so
No, fair enough.
There's the symbol of Madrid, like the badge or whatever they call that, the shield.
Yeah.
I can't remember the word.
The
for it.
lion throne.
The bear on the tree. So that would be the bear throne, and there's no bears in Madrid.
Like I said, I just find it interesting when people talk about lions because I think it's come up before. And I was just thinking, where have you seen a lion? What do you know about lions? How do you know a lion would feel this way when it's hunting, right? Like that's a very specific thought. So on that point that you made earlier about Gabrelle wondering why they have not been given a direct order to leverage, using their compulsion to not harm the Black Tower. I think Logain suspects that at some point these factions within the Black Tower are going to have to fight each other, and then he can't have the Aes Sedai hampered by something that restricts them from actually fighting against Ashaman that are trying to kill them. So this is me inferring a lot again, but I mean, Logain is obviously no idiot, right? He's quite a sharp dude, and the way he's dealing with these Aes Sedai confidently, but still being extremely wary. Just like we're constantly told, like how he's wary and he's like checking his, he's aware of everything that's happening, the undercurrents, and distrusting the guys, getting the private lessons from the Mihail and all that sort of stuff. So I think he knows exactly what he's doing. It is not like by some kind of careless omission that they've forgotten to give them the order or like have not given them a similar order to not harm the Black Tower. I think he is specifically not giving that's what this thought from Gabrelle is supposed to show us, is that he is specifically not asking her to not act against the Black Tower, because it is quite likely that at some point she'll have to alongside with him, right? Like he will also have to act against what could be perceived as the Black Tower. Anyway, that's my thought. Gabrelle talks about a trap that she's fallen into that she can't talk to anyone about, and it's just before the point about like when they're in the throes of passion, right? Like the mask of the bond comes down and she gets really, is she actually like falling in love with Logain or having feelings with him?
That's the only thing I can think of, unless it's some other
I think it's the conflicted nature of it, being a raid.
Yeah.
And falling in love with a man.
Well, Gabrelle is not a red.
Oh, shit, yes,
she's
right.
Tovin is the red.
Gabrelle
is green or brown.
But still, the falling in love with a man that can channel something that was meant to be hunted, like who also bonded her against her will, like
also a false dragon who has already been gentled, led countries to war. Dangerous man. Can't let herself lose control around a man like this.
Have a little Taviran pull on him, maybe. Just a light tug.
A little mini Taviran. I'm stoked with how Logain tells Mishrael almost quietly never to speak of the Aes Sedai like that again. Gabrelle thinks Logain's coldness that she senses over the bond is because he's ready to defend her honor, but I think it's more because Logain knows that Mishrael is one of Taim's men and is as likely to kill him as not. Mishrael says to Logain, as he turns away like a fucking pompous twat, turns away and rides off, and he says, "Glory waits for some of us, Logain." My note to that is, yes, but not you, you clown. Logain will be the one basking in glory, because Min has a viewing of Logain that goes exactly like this. Logain's aura still speaks of glory, stronger than ever. Maybe he still thinks he's the real Dragon Reborn. And at the conclusion of the last battle, Logain gains honor and glory for himself and the Ashaman by rescuing the common folk of Caemlyn, and then subsequently breaks the remaining seals of the Dark One's prison, allowing Rand to fully reseal the Dark One's prison again, and Logain is named Seal Breaker for this. So like, Min's viewing specifically has the words, lots of glory. Yes. So it was just when Mishrael says that, I was like, oh yeah, nice. Not for you, buddy. Glory does wait for some, but it's for Logain. Alright, so what did you guys score that one? Logain, Toveen, Gabrelle, Mishrael riding in the snow.
We're getting to better characters, I suppose, and that helps. Because I started liking
-2
point. No minuses. I'm sitting on a 6.5, 7. Because I actually enjoyed
like that one.
I suppose because Logan's story is he is mentioned from the get-go. It is one of your main story runners. One of the main, wouldn't call it a protagonist, but he carries a lot of weight on him.
He does. He does.
So,
and I think in the books that come even more, right?
Yeah,
he becomes almost like Rand's right hand.
More now. So for me, that is good. And I mean, we know about the presence of now time or the Mahal, like that out that's started now. So you can see the division in, much like you've got the White Tower division, there's the Black Tower division as well. And that's sort of that, and we are all on the side of rebels. And Logan for me is like the leader of the rebels in that movement almost.
So I heard you say the word 7, so I'm holding you to a 7. Joseph.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. 7.
Hey, me too. Look at that. 777 across the board. Here we go. See, this book's great. The prologue, amazing.
Like swaying us over using our own words against us.
Don't say anything else, Billy. Use our words to trick us.
Keep the scores negative. Okay, look, this is where my whole argument is going to fall apart, because, Billy, the next point of view that you have to share with us is that of Yukiri.
I think this is the best bit out of this absolute. If I were the writer of this storybook and I had to compose this, I would have made the prologue this Yukiri bit, expanded on it, and then moved into it, because Ituralde's little bit could have been dropped in between, in an intersection where you break off one story to the next line. Just a reminder that this guy did that.
I feel like it was.
Hey?
I feel like that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, but like in the book, not back to back.
Not to start the book.
Not to start the book.
Okay, fair enough.
Because
fair enough.
This is a big storyline. Like, Yukiri and them caught one of the Black Aja. This is massive. This is, and the expansion and the building of the mistrust in the tower and all of that is not something that you can just quickly go over. This is a big thing. So for me, this is actually the most telling one. Anyway, let's get into it. We are in the White Tower now, the very divided White Tower, and we also know this tower is under siege. So there's not a lot of teams of people coming in and out. Doors are closed. The tower's closed. So it's only the 200 odd Aes Sedai that's left inside the tower, and it's pretty empty. But yet they're bumping into each other in the hallways the whole time, because they're too scared to have private conversations, put up wards, because immediately, like, oh, who's talking to who over there? But I'm delving quite deep into it now. She's concerned about the not hearing from the sisters that's gone to Caemlyn. We know why she's not hearing from them is because they got half stilled, half captured, half sworn fealties, and all the rest with Rand. And worst of all, concerned that Rand has completely fallen off their radar. He's vanished. Well, yeah, that will happen. But she is also pragmatic in the sense that she knows that she can't do anything about it. And what she's got to continue with is with her instruction from Elida to find the Black Archer, which was not really the instruction of Elida to find the Black Archer, but it is the end result and quite effectively being done at this moment. Walking the halls, as I mentioned, is sort of the only sense of privacy that there is, because it's just a shit place at the moment. A lot of mistrust that's going on about it. And that in itself makes her feel that the plan of sowing stories of Logain by the rebels in there has done its job. Like, they've managed to create something, even though I think it's more the doing of Elida, that there's this massive distrust and all the things that Elida's done. But from Yukiri's point of view, it feels like the rebels have succeeded in their task. All right, so back onto the Black Archer now. Maidani is having a conversation with her, and they have now found one of the Black Archer members, who is, or she's been outed by, what was the one that's called Talene? Talene was caught,
the one that caught, yeah.
That episode, or that last ending of chapter. And Talene is now outed because, as we know, they've got their heart of 3 up to 1 Larsiset is named. One of the others that has been named, Galina Casban, which was a huge shock. Like, it took days for some of them to come around to the fact that
Pavara specifically, who's a red.
Yes, that Galina is a Black Archer. And then Yukiri was less shocked about Tamail, because, you know what, it's expected that in every Archer there's going to be. So I think her reaction, and it speaks more to being grey. Like, Pavara had a very emotional reaction about the news of Galina, where Yukiri had less of an emotional reaction and a much more logical approach to the naming of one of her own. And it's great, and it goes to this in the start as well. Like, she can't do much about hearing from her sisters that's sent to Carrion and Rand disappearing. Like, be pragmatic about it. Like, move on with it. Well, part of their studies now is also seeing, okay, if you got to do an investigation into anything, you start looking at records. Anything that puts a name on a piece of paper, and apparently you got to sign yourself in and out of the tower as a sister. So they've got a attendance register, and they've basically been scouring the attendant register and see who has been, who has left, who's gone at the same time, as part of their tracking down of said Black Archer. Yukiri wants Maidani to reestablish her friendship, which goes back 30 years with Elida, because they were novices together, but apparently Elida got raised to accept it before her, and then because she didn't want to show any favoritism, she treated her like shit. In just how Elida reasons everything out. But plus, every time she also goes to see her, she gets blocked by Alviarin. And then the Alviarin starts ringing bells, the idea of Alviarin, because now Alviarin is also signing in and out of the tower quite frequently, and maybe there's a correlation between some of these other Black Archer sisters that is there. Yukiri gets seen and shouted at from a distance in the hallway, and right now in the tower hallways, that's just a big no-no. You might as well draw a sword in shouting a name. Like, everyone's on A. They're like cats on a hot tin roof. Does that work? Just very skittish. Sure. We'll make it work. Anyway, it's Ciane, and Ciane has got a little bit of news for her. She has picked up And this rings true for me to what's happened in the rebel camp and kind of how Gawyn got her grasp of power. And I mean, that was a powerful event that happened there, that the Aja heads are placing sitters that is not logical choices into the positions. And it's all to manipulate. The Ajas are manipulating the decisions of the sitters in the hall by placing younger ones. And so this is a culture in the Aes Sedai because it happened on both the towers. So both sides have picked it up.
Yes.
It's
do you think they happen in isolation, or do you think there's some kind of collusion between the Aja heads in the tower and the Aja heads the rebels?
A culture in the Aes Sedai. They have basically lived it and seen it, that whoever is appointed as a sitter is appointed by the older and wiser, or the one that may not be as popular, but is because the head of the Archers is also kind of like kept under wraps. Not everyone knows who the heads of the Archers are, whereas the sitter is very public. So kind of reminded me of politics in the broader sense, that the lobbying groups
definitely
get the senators into place.
Where
does the
sway
power
over
lie?
them?
So that there is, okay, cool. Not only do you have this Black Aja now confirmed with high level names in it, you're also dealing with the background politics and who of them is actually sitting on the Black Aja. Like, are they putting Black Aja sitters onto the hall? So that opens up a massive can of worms for her over there. But she tells her that she might have to puzzle this out, and they're gonna have to look at it. There's a lot on Yukiri's plate at the moment. Rebels, Black Aja, politics through the roof, and a lot of similarities between the two towers. And I think that pretty much covers off that chapter, or not chapter, that point of view.
POV. She says to Cian, Go back to your rooms until everyone knows you're safe. You'll have lots of time to figure out this theory of yours before the rebels arrive.
You're not going for a walk soon.
They have to travel through the snow. The rebels are going to take months to get here. Just go relax. Go work on your puzzle. You've got lots of time.
No.
In the next POV, that is Gawyn's, the army is there.
Yes.
Right, so even in this book's timeline, we saw the army actually depart at the end of Path of Daggers, but that was a jump forward in time. But in the very next point of view, the army is outside of Tarvalon. So it was just funny when she says, "No, well, you've got lots of time." And then she even thinks to herself at the end of the chapter, "Oh, if only the rebels could be here already, it would help force the Argers to work together again instead of being split apart." And it's just like, careful what you wish for. They're about to be like there, like right now. They're coming now. Joseph, did you have anything about this Yukiri chapter? Was this the one that you really struggled with, or was it the Samitsu one?
No, it was my one. My final chapter. The Samitsu one.
Yeah, that's...
Now, this reminded me, because in the Samitsu one, they meet a certain somebody who talks to them about the Black Tower, and she's like, wow, like look how the Ashaman think about the Black Tower. It must be such a den of vipers, like, because they're not surprised that they'll be murdered if they go back. Look what's happening in the White Tower right now. I know. In this chapter. Glass houses, stones, that thing.
Kettles, pots, black ash.
Q Gerald's writing in about how the Aes Sedai always think that their way is the best way, cannot see their own issues, cannot see their own problems. Do you have any other notes?
No.
No? I have a couple. Surprise. Okay, so for myself, I had to just remind myself, Yukiri, okay, she's one of the sitters that found Cian and Pavara questioning sisters and became one of the Black Archer hunters. She's under the impression that Rand has lost control of the Aiel. Misinformation. No word from Coirin's embassy since they left the city. So Coirin was the head of the embassy from Elida that ended up kidnapping Rand. And, when Rand declined to come to the tower and the kidnapping plan was enacted, Galena took over. So Coirin and the embassy have not returned to the tower yet. We read about them pretty soon, like what's left of them in Dorlan, or at least from who's the one that comes back? Beldine. Anyway, we'll get there. Medani is one of the Saladar ferrets who was found out using the Oath Rod, right? So Yukiri has this power over her because they've made Medani swear the extra oath to do as they say. It's wild that this hostility between the Arjas was so bad that Yukiri thinks to herself, no sister should have the need of a warder within the tower, implying that they do need them. Like, she's upset that they should need a warder in the tower, but like they actually need their warders to protect them in the halls of the White Tower, which is just your point you just made before, Jody.
They need their warders to protect them from themselves, their own society. Like, that is, it's not a good place to be at the moment.
No, it's not. Even when all 900 Aes Sedai are in the White Tower, the numbers feel small. Remember, they've previously spoken about how the Aes Sedai, they've been finding fewer and fewer women they can channel, and the numbers have been dwindling over the years and everything. And at the moment, there's only 200 in the tower. So it's like the halls, the tower seems almost vacant, I think is the word that she uses. With only 900, when all the sisters are there, it's already like not very full. Like, their numbers have been dwindling steadily. And now there's only 200. Yeah, so it's actually quite a I've always imagined it as sort of like a bustling, like a busy sort of thing, but here now I'm starting to really imagine like barren hallways and not seeing a lot of people moving around.
What stood out for me as well is that even the help is on edge. Like, you got the two poor guys they're like, okay, cool, we got to take Wood up to that one's quarters up there. Yeah. Let's do it. Let's take the sneakiest, long, backhanded servant route, trolley pushing through there, and they come out behind the tapestry, and now, fuck, there they are. The witches found us.
Side-eyeing him,
And they get side-eyed. I wonder, nothing, because they're just there.
I wonder if that's going to be probably used later on. That's why introduce all these secret passages behind tapestries, and then the Aes Sedai was Yukiri or somebody thinks like, I can't even remember where all these entrances are and exits. Like, I can't remember which tapestries they're behind.
So I'm sure that in the siege,
someone's gonna in Egwene, like it's gonna be used somewhere.
When the Sean-Chan attack or something, maybe.
So the biggest thing I would
that's good call out, Joe.
Who is it that makes the Gwendiar?
Elaine. No? Egwene.
Is it Elaine or Egwene? They learn how to make Gwendiar, and they turn the harbour chains into Gwendiar. So I think that's Egwene.
Elaine can make the Terangriel and stuff, but I think Egwene, okay, creating a massive callback myself here. Egwene, has the elemental, sort of like the earth strength that is strange for a woman, so I think that probably goes with turning iron into Gwendiar. I think it's a great. Sure.
This is a very nice. I absolutely love the tower siege bit and the going back to the tower for Gawyn.
You're about to be feasting. I think
that's all coming.
They wonder where Alviarin possibly could have gone in this weather. Like, they don't know that she can travel, so like every time Alviarin, she's like moving around a lot, and they're like, how is she like traveling in this weather? So where would she even go? Like, it would take her ages to get anywhere. Alviarin is being a bit careless, like they're already like thinking about it.
Should make a great Forsaken. Like, they're probably eyeing her for a promotion.
She said she is. Yes. Interesting that Elida pushed the novices and accepted whom she favored so hard that other sisters had to step in, and that Swan was one of those. So she actually probably like expected a lot from Swan when she was young, when she chose Blue and like played tricks on her and stuff. She really hated her. This forced friendship that Yukiri is making Medani take up with Elida again. They were, what did you say this before, Vil? They were pillow friends, Medani and Elida, when they were accepted, I think, or novices.
I don't know if they were pillow friends, but they were friends.
Oh, that's what the fandom says. Well, maybe we'll find out later. Because
I think everyone who was once young and together in the tower were pillow friends, it seems.
Look, there are a few scenes later where Medani is like attending dinner with Elida, and later even when Egwene is in the tower, she's also there. Bianin, who is one of the original Saladar 6 with Sheriam and a couple other Aes Sedai, right? Like, she was one of the Saladar 6. She actually, when Egwene is captured, because she's sworn an oath to Egwene at this point to help Egwene. When Egwene is captured, Bjorn reckons, okay, she's not the Amelin seat anymore, therefore my oath is now null and void. She tells Elida about all the ferrets, including Medani, and Elida continues to have dinners with Medani, gaslighting her and psychologically torturing her. And then also with Egwene in the room. By the way, Bjorn also teaches all the Tower Aes Sedai how to travel and gives away most of the weaves that they learnt in Saladar. Like, Bjorn is a total fucking turncoat. But this relationship between Medani and Elida is quite rough. I think maybe we find out later that they were pillow friends because that relationship is specifically explored and, poked with sharp implements. The fact that the Black Archer knows everything Elida is about to proclaim before she does makes Yukiri and the Hunters want to double check that Elida is not actually a Dark Friend. I mean, check Elviaran too, but, Elida's papers are the ones that you need to check. Like, they are so close to getting to the true source. Like, Elviaran, yeah, she's traveling a lot, and where would she even go? Yes, she's always like, intercepting. They acknowledge that she's taken more power than any keeper ever has before. But they're not like... super
right in front
suspicious
of you. Just
about
put one and one together, Yukiri. You're sharp enough. Apply that logic.
The tapestry they're standing in front of is one of Queen Rhiannon being shamed by the Aes Sedai or something. Queen Rhiannon had gone to the White Tower and announced to everyone who she was. She acted very pompous and demanding something unknown from the Aes Sedai. What she received, however, was far from what she wanted. Centuries after her scene at the White Tower, a tapestry of her being humbled hangs in the corridors. That's what we read about here. When Elaine Traken boldly announces who they were to the kin, Nynaeve Almira chides her for it and reminds Elaine of Rhiannon. Like, in that moment in the city in Ibudar, when they confront them and like, we're Aes Sedai and everything, this little reference to this queen on this tapestry, which are the only two places in the series that you read them, or if the fandom citations can be believed. Like, just those two little points are connected by this reference to Queen Rhiannon, which I thought was cool. Okay, almost done, guys. Hang in there. Yukiri and Siain both allude to the fact that Saren, so the older, tougher sitter who, grabbed the oath rod from Siain when they were found out, is in charge. Siain says Saren said she could come find Yukiri, so she had to ask permission from Saren, who I had said when we read about her the first time, I like this old lady's style. Like, I want to keep a close eye on her, and she's keeping a close grip on this group, which is cool. Oh, and my last one was just that Yukiri wishes the rebels would arrive sooner, and I said, careful what you wish for. That is it. Okay, score out of 10 for Yukiri's point of view. Let's start with Willie.
8.5. It's the highest I'll go.
Okay. Jody?
I don't know. I'm just going to sit on my 7 fences.
It was a 7 for me as well.
No. Yeah, there's a lot in there. Cool. I think this is the one that would have psyched me out to get into the book. Like, yeah, that's right. Okay, cool. That at least off page in the background, things has happened. Like, that movement in there. Yes, it's the divided tower. It's not the rebel girls. It's not where our girls are. But in there, there's someone that's seeking truth and justice and recognizes that the balance of power is lying in the wrong areas.
Yes. Yeah, actually, they've got the names of a couple Black Archer sisters now, and you're right, this plot that Siain is sort of cotton onto, like, wait a minute, are the Archer heads colluding to control the hall? And that's really tantalizing, right? Like, that is a cool thing for us to see. Like, I'm eager to see Siain pick it apart and what actually becomes of it. Fuck, I hope something comes of it, because otherwise I'm going to be really disappointed.
I have a question.
Shoot.
We know that their mandate, she got a mandate from Elida to try and find out something about, like, Elida was trying to get her to out Elviaran on what?
Treason.
Because we know that treason. Okay.
Yes.
Because I know that they misinterpreted it as
Hunter
Black Archer. And in doing so, found the rebels in the tower. So, like, a whole bunch of unintended
and Black Archer.
And the Black Archer. But I couldn't remember what the original order was. Like, what was the original plan?
Treason, it was because Elida was sulking about Elviaran shunting her around and stuff. So she wanted Siain to investigate Elviaran specifically. All the way up to the Keeper. All the way to Elviaran herself. Elviaran.
And
look
stop
how they
there.
are.
Don't look at me.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so let's forge ahead to Villy's other favorite character, Gawyn.
I don't mind Gawyn. I mean,
Gawyn.
Cute boy. Anyway, it's kind of like to analyze this one or read into it, and I felt a little bit confused by this one. But to re-understand where he is, he's sleeping in a hayloft, so no entry into the tower. I assume his entry into the tower is not allowed by Elida, or is it because the armies arrived and they under siege? Which I don't.
Well, both of those things.
Both.
First they wanted to go back to the city, but he found that they'd been expelled. The younglings had been expelled from the city, and now there's this army that appeared out of nowhere on each side of the river.
Both of the things both that they're staying in a hayloft. He's having dreams about Egwene, but I mean, that's just Gawyn. He dreams about his love all the time.
And Egwene, she jumps in there.
She jumps in there. He's dreaming of her, but she's coming to check out that he's not dreaming of someone else. All right. Raja arrives to report that there's an Aes Sedai messenger that's arrived from the tower who wants to see the sister in charge, and it was sent to Catherine Al-Radin and Tana Fear?
Yeah.
That one.
Tana Fear.
Gawyn thinks that maybe should have gone back to Caemlyn. Like, maybe I should have just ditched all of this. Yes, you should have. You could have been by the side of your sister. You could have helped her. A lot of things that you could have done. But no, you took yourself back to the city that you were banned from. Anyway, it's got to deal with his little life at the moment. He really wishes he knew where Elaine is, whether she's in the tower, whether she's at Caemlyn, wherever she is, but he has no certainty, and he questions Aes Sedai the whole time. And it's kind of a theme for him throughout this, with new Aes Sedai messengers coming in, that he just wants to know where she is. He's not really getting any definitive answers, because I think no one really knows that's in that side of the camp. Because I don't think her claim being laid on the throne has made that news there, because all the sisters that's been sent out, none of them has returned. So they're kind of in the dark at the moment.
Yeah.
Let's go through the notes here.
Also, Elaine had been in Caemlyn for a little while when she met with Egwene in Tel'aran'rhiod, and Egwene was going to travel to the siege the next day. Here, Gawyn is, the siege has just started, so news has not traveled.
Yeah, there's I feel the timelines in the last, there's some things that's just happened and some things that's gone past, but the timeline's a little bit convoluted. So it's almost like watching a movie and you get a throwback. It's kind of like how I feel a lot of these stories. It's not a linear timeline. It's not easy to tell
where. Yeah, it's not easy to when you go to these sections. It's not easy to Yukiri in the previous section says to Cian, or Cian says to Yukiri, it's been 2 weeks since you caught me and Pavara into so they found all those sisters and stuff. It's only been 2 weeks, and we feel like we read about that books ago.
Yep. Yeah. But the most important thing is that he can't really move, because the said army has just popped out of nowhere, out of magic gates, and basically they blocked into going back to the tower. So there's a lot of movement after the armies. And I don't know why they say it's a mysterious army, because if they just rode out and went and checked out who they were, they would know who they are. But anyway, Tana, who is a Red Sister, rode to... So where is Dorlan situated? Is that just outside the island? Or is it
I think
somewhat
gate towns, the bridge towns.
One of the fishing towns before the...
I think it's a little bit further than the gate towns, Joe. Otherwise, they would be in between the besieging armies.
Yeah, so
Joe's going to look it up.
Dana has taken control of all. She's a Red, and she's taken control of all the Aes Sedai, of those who's stationed there now. And the majority of them are the remnants that's fallen off from Dumai's Wells. So she's taken charge there. She's inspected the younglings thoroughly. questioned everyone, and done Elida's bidding, I assume. And then Gawyn is certain that at some point in time they're probably going to lead a scouting party from there to go and suss out the army. Take it. Catherine Krldin. She's a nasty piece of work, if you remember her. She's also a Red Sister.
Black.
Yes. Even better. Same
for you.
Same, but different. She's arrived a few days ago as well. She then took the leadership away from Tana, so there's a little power struggle there. So no longer the bad color, but the bad color has taken charge. And she's quite aloof with all the sisters. She sees the younglings as a tool that she's just going to use in any which way she wants to. And Gawyn will be pretty stoked if any one of them go and get out of there. Okay, they're trying to get a fisherman to help them now sneak into Tarvalon. So that Gawyn is saddled with. But Gawyn also then pushes, I don't know how to pronounce this woman's name, Naruwin? Is that right?
Sure.
We'll go with it. Gawyn presses her, like they pushing him to get stuff done, and every time he asks around where Elaine is, he doesn't get much of an answer out of them. And there's quite a bit of frustration that builds up in Gawyn regarding this topic. Naruwin reaffirms with him just that Elaine is sealed to the White Tower, and that the younglings also sealed to the White Tower because of their choice to fight against the rebels. So, but
Elida already excommunicated them.
Oh, that's conflict of interest, isn't it? But Elida does make pretty rash decisions.
The other younglings also don't seem as opposed to Elida as what Gawyn is. Like, he thinks to himself, like, they kind of still respect the Aes Sedai, and Gawyn is really, really conflicted about it because he's loyal to the tower because he feels like Egwene and Elaine represent the tower. They are the tower to their core. They are Aes Sedai. Therefore, this like schism doesn't mean anything. The tower is the symbol. So like he feels like he has to be loyal to the tower in some perverted way. Being loyal to the White Tower is him showing that he's loyal to Egwene and Elaine. That's why he's so fucked up about it.
He's got a lot of confusion for himself at the moment.
He does.
He doesn't quite know. And I think the best thing he could have done is what he said, just actually left and gone back to Caemlyn. But he's got to deal with a whole lot. But I think the main thing of this chapter basically is just painting the scene of being what is happening outside of Tarvalon.
And doesn't Tana also say to him here, like, when last I saw your sister, she was with the rebel Aes Sedai. She was totally fine. Don't worry about it. And he's like, you had this information for like 2 days or something and you didn't say anything. It's like, you didn't ask, and walks off.
Good crowd, eh?
Do you remember Tana Fear is the emissary from Elida that arrived in Saladar? She came to Saladar, met with the Saladar 6, and then afterwards, like, met with Nynaeve and Elaine in their room that they shared and tried to convince them to come back to the tower with her, and they just told her to fuck off, and eventually she left the next day. She'd been riding from Saladar and got here
to find it that day.
Meanwhile, Egwene did like all the army building and all this stuff, and then traveled and just totally overtook her and blocked her as they got to the tower. She couldn't get back. Like, oh fuck!
Shit, yeah, didn't think about that.
But how are they not clicking about traveling or about the gates? Like, I don't get it.
Who?
Tana, the whole lot of them. All of them there. Katrina Rodden, the whole lot of them.
Tana hasn't traveled further than Dorlan. Like, she got the word about the army as she got to the town. And she's like, well, fuck, now I can't get in because the army is camped on either side of the river, I think, or either side of the road or something.
I mean, that would be my main question. I've just ridden and traveled all the way from Saladar to here to find that all of them are here already? Or does she even
these guys
know
don't seem to know. They don't know who this army is. Gawyn doesn't know, and if he doesn't know, I'm sure the sisters who are not, doing any scouting, do they have any warders with them? Like, they're both red, so I don't think they do.
No, Tanang and Catherine won't have any.
They seem ill-informed. No one here says anything about the rebels, and Tana's talking about the rebels back in Saladar. So I just don't think that they even imagined an army could be moved by a gateway, right? Like, even a single person moving by gateway. Catherine would have moved by gateway if she knew how to travel. She's Black Arja, sure, but she was caught at Dumai's Wells, and she was in the Aiel camp as a prisoner, and was freed by an Aiel dark friend, and she got out. And when people hear in this chapter, he's talking about like, Catherine she refused to tell anyone what happened to her at Dumai's Wells, because Gawyn was there as well, and she disappeared. Like, he never saw what happened to her, and she won't tell anyone where she was, because she'd either have to make up some elaborate lie or tell them that she was captured at Dumai's Wells and was escaped from an Aiel camp. And then people will go, how and why? Well, I had a dark friend help me. She's being sort of playing coy with where she's been this whole time. What else was here? Joe, did you have any other notes?
I seem to recall that Gawyn at Dumai's Wells, when they were chasing down the rest of that Shido, realized that Elida had ordered them to be disposed of, the younglings.
Yes.
Do you remember that? Was it like, did he get
the
impression that he was
much
expendable?
Yes.
Or did he find out that she had actually said, kill them all after?
No, I think the former. I think we know. I think we read a chapter where some other Aes Sedai, like Galena or someone, was talking about, like, also if you can kill Gawyn and the younglings, that would be great. Yeah. But Gawyn certainly was aware of the fact that he was expendable. He doesn't like Elida. When Elida said, when the other Aes Sedai arrives, I forget her name, with orders from Elida, Gawyn goes, orders from Elida. Why would I listen to orders from her? Because she's had us excommunicated. And what he doesn't say is that she basically wants us dead. But the other younglings are still loyal to the tower, and therefore Elida. So this whole like image that they've put up is like, Gawyn thinks here, the younglings will forever be remembered as the group of warders that defended the White Tower that night of Swan's escape. He killed fucking Hamar, right? Like, he is now all in on that decision. And he's still and he's fucked up about it, because he's the one that eventually, after all of that, let Swan out of the city, right? Like, he helped her escape. So he is so conflicted about that. And like, the fact that he is in love with and has a sister as part of like the rebels and the leader of the rebels against the White Tower. But in his head, he still has to remain loyal to the tower and the younglings and everything that he said before, because in a very roundabout way, that is being loyal to that. So he's an absolute fucking mess.
Yeah, I think we went all in that tower defense, and there's no going back, even though he knows he's not wanted and Elida wants him dead.
Exactly. So that, in other words, doesn't the chapter also end with him go like, okay, what are the orders? Like, he's resigned. Yeah, fucking begrudgingly. He's like, okay.
He is acting like a 22-year-old who owns a sword.
Yes, true.
22-year-old man who owns a sword. It's never really good.
Who's in love.
Who's in love.
So he's all fucked up. We know that feeling.
We've all been there.
We're bastard.
So his little dude that comes and talks to him, Rajar, had been training at the tower for 6 years. That is a long time to be training as a warder. He's probably quite a pro, but like, I didn't realize that warder training would be that long.
Is he a pro? Or is maybe he's not. Part of the group because he's not a pro?
I think the younglings in general are regarded as very good. Yeah. What else? Oh, and there's 300 of them. More than 300 men that Gawyn is commanding that are staying here in Dorlan. I forget every time I read that number, I'm like, oh shit, Gawyn's got a lot of badass sword fighters with him.
I did not remember that. Also, Dorlan is the cheese town, not the gate town. All the tower gets their cheese from.
That's right.
That's important to the story.
That's what everyone does here. Like, everyone has a shed with a couple of cows because they all make cheese, and the tower gets all its cheese from this place. That's right. What else? else, that is it. So, Villy, you have done your part for this evening. The last 2 point of views are for Jody. But before we do, Gawyn chapter score there out of 10?
It could have been
3.
Something that was part of the details of moving into the siege. It's out of place here. Like, it doesn't feel like it brings weight low down.
Okay.
2.5.
Joe? 2.5? Wow, okay.
No, I already said 3.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Look, it's not my favorite. It's out of these probably my least favorite, so a 6. But what I did like was, seeing Tana having ridden all these months and then the rebel army still like gazumping her and just getting there right before her. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the little interplay between Tana and Katerin, like their little power struggle. I really like the fact that Gawyn at least heard that Elaine is okay. Like he got some good news there. And it gave me just a reminder of what Gawyn's rationale is, why he's behaving in this way, why he is still loyal to the tower, even though he knows that Elida wants him dead. So I got something out of it. It was just not a very pleasant read. I mean, Gawyn's chapters, unless he's killing Sean-Chan assassins in the dark, are pretty off-putting, really, because of his emotional state. Righty-ho. Joseph, take another sip of tea. Get your throat ready, because there's 2 chapters for you to, or 2 chapters, 2 points of view to go. The first one is of Davram Bashere.
Oh, no little lead-in.
No.
Of course not. That'll be too much to ask. But we joined Davram Bashere. Villy, guess where he is? Guess what he's doing?
He is drinking tea in the snow.
Yeah, he's thinking in the snow, but close enough.
And talking. And then
he
thinking
talks later,
more.
but first he's thinking. He's using that looking glass that Rand gave him as a present. Remember that? He's monitoring this big army camp setting up around the city of Caemlyn. Around 5,000 men. He is thinking to himself, of course he is, it's a well thought out plan. They've got everything covered in the basics of what you need in a siege. They are covering all the gates. He's apparently overlooking Tarvalon Gate at this point. The groups of besiegers. I use the word besiegers a lot. I really hope it's a word. On every road, yeah. Okay. And they're out of bowshot from the city walls and all of that jazz. Whatever. What isn't so easy to understand for him are the banners in that army below. And I was like, oh, God, here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go. So there are many banners of smaller houses that I won't bore you with. But they are there in support of Aramilla Marn.
Mm-hmm.
You remember Aramilla?
Queen Killer.
She's been around. If you recall, when both Elenia and Nain are being transported to Arendelle, she is the one who intercepts them and then frees / takes them prisoner.
Yes.
They were the ones who declared themselves for the Iron Throne originally, but she has usurped their forces and is now claiming the throne for herself.
The Lion
A little
Throne.
bit of a... Yes. You don't have to worry too much about it. This doesn't go well for her. Spoiler alert. She's out of the picture soon enough. Bael is there too, next to Bashere. He just wants to kill all these wetlanders down there. And I'm like, that's a good plan, bro. A bunch of the Aiel have their veils up, but Bashere doesn't know if this is for the cold or if they're just ready to kill. Probably both. Bashere has to remind him that they, the Aiel and the Seldaeans, are outlanders. And they cannot help Elaine take the throne. They cannot participate. They cannot just ride down there and kill all these morons and be done with it. Just then, Bael notices some wagons making a run from the city. Lots of people had fled before the siege army arrived, but these people were a little bit late. And they are quickly stopped and ransacked by the besiegers. But here comes the cavalry. And the Queen's Guard open the gates, and they come galloping down the road, and they come to the rescue, chasing away the other soldiers of the besiegers. And the captain of the guards... once they've got everybody around and they've chased off the other soldiers, the captain of the guards, this is all what Bashere is seeing through his looking glass, right? Is up on his horse, just gives a backhand to one of the refugees for being a dumbass and making them come out here to save them. And also because I believe it's Hanlon, because he's dressed as the captain of the guard. So it's David Hanlon who's run out there and just backhanded this random dude. They all make it back to the city, minus some of their belongings that they had to leave lying in the snow, because Hanlon, even though he is a douche, he knows they need to get out of there. And all the way back that they're running, he's waving his sword over his head like an idiot. And Bashere even remarks on that. He's waving his sword over his head for some reason. They're racing back as if they're being chased by the devil himself. There's no one behind them. So it just, and then after I read that twice, I was like, oh, that's definitely got to be Hanlon.
I thought the same thing. I thought I didn't realize the person was dressed as the captain of the guard, but I was thinking that is either David Hanlon or like a mercenary or like a holdover from Ravin's soldiers or something. It's like just reminding us that these ne'er-do-wells have been folded into the Queen's Guard, and it's not quite as solid a force as it used to be. It was also shocking, like Andoran soldiers hitting peasants. That's not what we've come to expect.
Yeah, well, when you're under siege, and you break through the gates and run out and I have to come save you, I'm going to give you a backhand as well. I mean, it wouldn't just be, like, I don't blame David Hanlon for this. I'm just pointing out that he's a dickhead, like every opportunity I get.
Yeah.
All right, so both Bashere and Bael are bored, so they both head back to camp. On the way, he regroups with his escort, led by a young officer called Tumad, that Bashere is grooming for command. Like our previous dude that we are supposed to start liking, who's probably going to die soon, I have a sneaky feeling about Tumad as well. Either he's going to die, we're going to love him and he's going to die, or he's going to become fucking epic. One of the two. He's young, and he agrees with Bael. Let's just go kill all these morons and be done with it. But because he's young, Bashere tells him, like, listen, if you want some action, Queen Tenobia, if you recall, is only 50 leagues north of where we are right now, with the rest of the Borderlanders, 150,000 men or some crazy shit. There's also, remember that news about that Aes Sedai army in northern Marandy? Spoilers, they're now at the gates of Tarvalon. And they won't forget that Bashere rode with the Dragon Reborn. Aes Sedai don't forget things like that. Oh, yes, and the Shaunchan are also coming. So your excitement, young man, will come. We don't have to go making our own excitement. Talking of excitement, they make it back to their camp of 8,000-ish cavalry. So just to give you ideas, so the army surrounding the besiegers are 5,000. He's got 8,000 cavalry. We know
that one camp, Jody,
9,000.
That one camp was 5,000. There's another 7 camps.
Okay.
Of similar size.
That's a very little amount of people to besiege it. Okay.
When Halwyn Norrie announces the approaching army, he says 20, maybe 30,000. And then when Bashere looks at this camp, it's 5,000, and there are 7 others just like it. So it could be up to 40,000 men.
All right. Okay. Where's my notes? There we go. Oh, yeah. So getting back to his camp of 8,000 cavalry, it's much more organized, this is pointed out, than the those minor Andorans who have just popped up their tents any which way. Really bothers this man. But there is a stir in his camp, particularly around his own tent, which is in the center, where he left his wife. So he freaks out and gallops towards it. If someone's following him, good. If not, he doesn't give a shit. He jumps out of his saddle while the horse is still running, hits the ground running himself, and into his tent. Dira is there. She's just sitting in a chair, being a badass. She's been attacked and is being attended to by more camp followers for a cut on her left arm. I think she blames illegal immigrants. She tells him she should have had the staff from our own lands. This is what happens when you employ outlanders. So once she sees she'll be okay, he jokes with her about, trouble with the servants. Like, it's never come to blades. I know you had your trouble with the servants. The women helping her give him those sidelong looks that only they can give. And, they have a unique marriage, he thinks to himself. Like, there's a lot of joking between him and his wife, and a lot of people just don't get them. They think they're weirdos. It's like,
because they don't shout at each other.
Yeah, and they just call each other idiots all the time and joke around like some serious shit has happened here, So she tells him what happened. She tells him slowly and with small words so that he can understand. And apparently she came back from a round. She found these 2 illegals robbing them. They drew knives, so she hit one of them with a chair. She got nicked in the process with the dagger. And in all this commotion, drew the serving ladies that were outside, who are all as equally badass as her, by the way, inside the tent, who chased away these bad guys, and they went through the cut in the back of the tent that they had made to get in originally. So Dira commanded them to follow these men, but they were more concerned with helping her and her bleeding arm, and they ignored her. So Dira has already ordered a search for the men, and they kick Bashere out of the tent because there's nothing for him to do. She's taken care of everything. Like, her arm's fine. She's ordered the men be searched for, blah, 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 blah. Outside, he announces to everyone, all the followers around, that she's okay, and everyone can go back to their business. It's all going to be good. So the men leave, but none of the women move. And as a Saldean man who is not an idiot like Perrin, he says nothing to these women and leaves himself. He walks back to Tumad, who informs him that they have already found the men. Dead, of course. Executed for their failure, it would seem, with one little dagger thrust behind the ear into the base of the skull. So, very, very execution style. Bashere had been expecting an attempt on his life for some time now, and now that it has happened, they have nothing. So they almost got his wife instead of him. Their only suspects are dead, and someone killed them, meaning that there are more conspirators in the camp, and they don't know who those people are either. So he needs to take action. So he leans over to our old buddy Tumad and tells him quietly, "Find the man who came to me yesterday. Tell him I agree, but there will be a few more than what we talked about." And that's the end of that. So that's what happened. I don't know who this man was, and I don't know what they were talking about.
Me neither.
No? All right. God, I was hoping for answers. Sorry to all our listeners who came here for answers.
No answers.
You'll have to join us next week when we do all the callbacks to find out what happened.
Yes.
Well, not next week.
Behind the curtain. 2 weeks. A quick peek behind the curtain. I only finished my notes today, and I didn't have the time to go research who that could have been. But I did try and think about it. Like, there will be a few more than what we talked about. I agree, but there will be a few more than what we talked about. So, like, what things could be influenced by people? Like, what is Bashere's next move? Like, or a number of people, is he maybe talking about Tahin or an Ashaman that had come and approached him, and they need to travel? Like, all his soldiers need to get out of there, maybe go meet Tenobia and the other Borderlanders or something. Maybe he's going to move the whole camp instead of just him going or something like that. Like, that's where my head was going. It was a man that he spoke to, so not an Aes Sedai. And what thing that they would be discussing would be influenced by the sheer number of people that would be included. My head straight away went to traveling.
Yeah. That sounds good. I'm going to go with that one.
Well, we'll find out next week when I do the callback. Or maybe not. Maybe I don't find anything.
Maybe it's in the chapters that we read. The upcoming chapters.
Sweet.
Who knows? Imagine
Let's
finding information.
Let's hope.
By reading the chapters that come before you.
Willem, any notes on our Dobraine Bashere chapter here?
Just cloaks and daggers. We got mysteries brewing. I mean, it's good to know that, we're dealing with multiple sieges at the moment. We've got a very large force that's moved on Caemlyn. And Dobraine, good general, one of the great, some would say, is also in charge.
Stand up, dude. Love him.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not
better than Rodel.
Not particularly exciting. All the excitement happened off page with his wife that fought off to would-be assassins, thieves, thugs.
Well, here we get the closest thing to a setup for the siege, right? It's literally Dobraine Bashere standing on a hill with a telescope from Kintovir, by the way, who made the telescope Rand used in the siege of Cairhien. But he's standing on the hill looking at, so there's 8 roads leading into Caemlyn, and there's an army of about 5,000 people in these separated groups, right? So like they're on these different roads. There's 8 different camps around the city sitting on these roads, preventing anything coming in or going out. It's cool how they just acknowledge straight up, like for the reader, they acknowledge why Bashere and his men and the tens of or hundreds of thousands of Aiel can't intervene, because Elaine knows that if an external army intervenes, Elaine's claim to the throne is diminished because she couldn't stand up for herself. Foreign powers had to be involved to make sure that she stays in power. It diminishes her stature and her standing. And the besieging armies also know this. So they're not even watching. They know Bashere and Bale are up there and they know that they're around, but they haven't even set up sentries because they know it won't happen. Because they know that Elaine would have told whoever the other armies in the area are to not intervene. So it's like the exact thing, Willie, the Diastyle Mar and the sort of like the political undercurrents and maneuvering of Crossroads of Twilight that are being set up here. So these are the rules of engagement. This is the size of the army. They even tell us the circumference of the city. It's, what is it, like 6 leagues or something?
6 leagues, yeah.
Yeah. So, it's giving us this bird's eye view. This is what the siege of Caemlyn looks like.
I feel there's a plot hole in it. Because
how so?
If you got 100,000, an army of 100,000 standing there, out
40,
of honor.
Oh, you mean Bale's army?
Yeah, Bale's army. Like, you got the Hill, you've got Dobraine, they're all standing there, and they're not going to be used because, as you say, it's a foreign. But they're also not going to stand back once the attacking or the besieging army has taken over. They're going to go, okay, cool, you've had your fun, you've showed your thing, but we are still under orders of the Dragon Reborn, so suck it, and then move on them.
See, the whole point of the siege, and it's said in this chapter as well, is not to actually engage in any fight, because Andorans fighting Andorans is not what any Andorans want. It's only politics. It's like, okay, we're going to stop food and stuff coming in from your city. We're basically going to deadlock you. The mere act of doing that is going to shift alliances and loyalties within the Andoran nation itself. Like, it's like chess, right? So like some of the nobles' loyalty lane might go, okay, cool, the game is up here. We can't actually do anything. Therefore, we'll have to side with the other side to be able to gain their favor because they'll likely be in power. And then that's how the politics are shifting. It's not actually meant for battle. It's another reason why these guys haven't put up sentries. And Dobraine thinks to himself, even in this situation, it's stupid not to set up high sentries. He goes, what is it? It's what killed you was always what you never expected. Right? So truer words have never been spoken. So he's seeing all this play out. He's like, this is war for babies, right? Like these guys don't know what the fuck they're doing. And I love Bale's like straightforwardness. Like, I think we should just go kill them. Like, what are we doing here?
They're just standing there.
Yeah, it's a waste of time. Also, we haven't fought in a long time. Like, we need to kill something.
Yeah.
I liked like the telescope. It was a cool gift, like a cool, what is it, like it's a gold thing, and I like the idea of Rand giving Bashere a gift. Like it also happened off page. We don't know what for anything specific, but it's just another one of those little reminders that yes, Rand is still a good human being deep down.
Well, it's got one of his generals and he's giving a practical tool.
True, but it's a very ornate and lovely one.
And is it a telescope? Isn't it just a looking glass? Telescope infers something that you look at this like
it's not
really
looking at
big.
the stars. Yeah, I don't think so.
Sure.
Another thing that I liked from this chapter, what I was thinking about, is that they got all this effort for all this siege, not knowing that inside are these powerful Aes Sedai that can use gateways to just go and get as much food as they want at any time as they want. And I was thinking now, while you were talking, they should open gateways into the besiegers' own food stores, steal it from them, so that every morning they woke up, they'd be like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Where's our food?
And they all starve and have to leave.
There's probably going to be some kind of RJ plot armor for like traveling, and like it can't be seen that the Aes Sedai saved Caemlyn or something. Elaine has to do it on her own and has to like pull them up by their own bootstraps. My last note here is just I laughed at Davram and Dira had already seen each other getting sewn up before, and neither of them liked it. Like Davram didn't like seeing, so like there's been other times where she's needed stitches and stuff from some kind of attack or some kind of fight
100%.
or something. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's it. So
it could have been a kitchen incident.
No, she's got servants.
Yeah, she's not in the kitchen, and she's described as like a physically imposing person, and like her whole vibe is one of like, I will fuck you up if you don't listen to me.
She's a borderlander, so comes with the territory.
Cool. Okay, score out of 10 for Bashere's chapter. Billy.
Again, could have been something that's part of that storyline. It's not telling us much that we didn't know. Like, we know the army arrived.
I disagree.
We know that they're there. We know that Halban Nori told us already how large they were. Like,
he was wrong.
Okay, he was out by 5,000. He estimated.
He was out by 20 at best, or no, 10 at best, and 20,000 at worst. He thought 20 or 30,000, and Davram counts 40.
Oh, but Davram's old.
He's not Bulwer.
Maybe didn't like
no, and Nori says to himself, like, I can't be sure, because I mean he's also just reporting on rumors and stuff like messages coming to him.
He didn't have eyes on the prize. Okay, yes, I love Davram, and I love how badass Dira is. So, I mean, for that there, I'll throw a bone. But the information wasn't like, and I got tired. I got tired towards the end. Like,
okay, that's
all
a
my
bit
enthusiasm.
more.
And like, maybe if you stopped it at Yukiri, I would have felt like, cool, I'll be more amped for the next one. But it was just a long haul.
Well, you think that's long? Wait till the next POV.
No,
the next POV is the longest one.
I know. I'm sorry.
Jody, your score for this chapter? Actually, wait, before you give your
7.
score.
Too late.
Oh, no. What did Billy give it? I don't think Billy gave a score.
Oh, no.
5.
You just moaned.
I moaned 5. And I gave it a 5.
I just carried on bitching.
I still don't think, like you keep saying, the information we got is not something that we didn't know already. We had no idea what the siege looked like. 8 camps of 5,000 people on the roads outside the city. All the reasons why Bashere and the Aiel could not participate. The houses that are aligned with Aramilla. She being, okay, we suspected that she might be in charge, but that's stuff that we knew from reading it before. We don't know
you
as
know that
readers
little
that Aramilla,
half
that's got Nyan.
that you get in between every now and then? And there were 24,000 men, and they were in 7 camps. They were around the city, but the big army couldn't engage. End.
No, awful.
You should write a book.
Unsubscribe. Yeah, that's not what I want to read at all. I want to read the rad generals, Aiel and Saldaean, standing on the hill, looking through a looking glass, assessing this thing, explaining to the reader the political lay of the land, how this battle is going to play out, what the stakes are, what the rules of engagement are, and then going back to camp, finding out that some attack has happened, and this is triggering in Davram Bashere something to, make some kind of move. Cryptic little message at the end. Who is this man? What are all these people? 8 from me.
Snorefest.
I think the only reason you're giving it an 8 is because the Aiel has been mentioned and Bale's there.
I mean, it probably took it from a 7.5 to an 8.
Yes. All right.
Okay, Joseph, bring it home.
Yeah, please, go on. Let me finish this now. This is the one that I messaged you about, saying like I had to just turn off the lights and go to bed. Like I can get on with it.
Samitsu herself and her behavior, it's hard going. Yeah.
It's not just that. There is so much description of everybody's clothes and of all the rooms they enter, and of all the carpets and tapestries and paintings. Half of this chapter is that. So anyway, we're with Samitsu, and we are in Cairhien, where Cadsuane left her in charge. It's not going well, by the way. There's a little power struggle developing between her and Sashalle. We'll get into who these people are. So guess what? She is standing inside, looking out at the snow, and she is thinking. She is pondering how useful Rand is when he's not around. His Aiel and the rumors he left to go and submit to Elida are helping her keep the peace. There's rumors from the west that the Aiel are plundering and looting and it's true, just not his Aiel. And he never left to go to Elida, but it keeps everyone in line and shutting up, so she's going to let them keep thinking that. Her ponderings are interrupted by the aforementioned Sashalle, asking for her attention. Sashalle is Red Aja. She's loyal to Elida. She was at Dumai's Wells, and she was stilled. Dharma healed her, and she has sworn fealty to the Dragon Reborn, and she's lost that age's look. And she's got long ringlets of hair, if you're interested in that. She's also an imposing woman, not short by any stretch of the imagination.
Powerful in the one power.
Very next words. She's also very strong in the one power, and therefore outranks Samitsu in the Aes Sedai hierarchy, hence this power struggle. Yep. So she's come in there, she's going, because she's like number 14 or something in the list of like power.
Oh, really?
People. Yeah, she's super, super high.
Yeah.
And Samitsu is not that high. She's not super weak, but she's not anywhere near as high as Sashalle. So Sashelle's back in here, and she's like, I'm taking over. But at the moment, Sashalle is reporting to Samitsu about what's going on between the nobles. Lords representing the now deceased Torum Riotin want the Lady Ailil to take his high seat. And Ailil wants Aes Sedai approval first. It's very clever. I like how she's not overreaching. Samitsu tells Sashalle to tell Ailil no. Last they heard, her brother was alive. And they don't want a civil war in House Riotin at the moment. There's enough shit going on right now that we can deal with. So they don't know that he's dead. But half the people in the camp, in the Riotin camps, believe he's dead. And the other half believe he's alive. So we're just going to leave things as they are for the moment. Sashelle's retort is that Rand will cause everything to go to shit anyway. So saying no now won't change anything in the long run. It's like, well, I suppose you're not wrong. But that's a bit, general. She's become quite the fervent Dragon Reborn servant for a Red, notes Samitsu. Also, Ailil will be easier to control than Torum, so the risk is worth it to her. So she's going to tell her to go ahead anyway, in spite of what Samitsu is telling her no. She's like, well, I think this is my reasoning, and I'm going to do it anyway, because I'm higher than you. Shut up. There are more Aes Sedai higher than her, in the Aes Sedai hierarchy, higher than Samitsu. I've got to keep track of all these names now. But they are still apprenticed to the Wise Ones. So they are 18 in total, and Sashalle is already causing her issues. So there's like 18 Aes Sedai that are still with the Wise Ones. A lot of them, I think it was 4, I'm just making up a number, could be, that are higher in the power than Samitsu. But she's got her hands full already with Sashalle.
Yeah.
Luckily, those other Aes Sedai are too busy digging holes and carrying stones for the Wise Ones to be any much of an issue for her at the moment. They are interrupted by Corgade. We mentioned her earlier. Merendivan, that's very nice. She is the holder of the keys, a servant in truth, but the true power in the palace. Samitsu had told her, Corgade, to report anything strange, and she's here to tell them that there's an Ogier in the kitchens. Oh, very nice. Haven't seen one of them in ages. They were not dressed in black and green armor and wanted to chop your head off. So Sashalle answers her first and says, listen, we're a bit busy now. Come back later. Dismisses her. Corgade concedes to her, and Samitsu is again outmaneuvered. She's seeing all her power slip away because she's the one that told Corgade to come and give them information. When Corgade entered, she kind of just spoke to the air. She didn't specifically speak to any Aes Sedai, and when she left, she bowed to Sashalle and said, okay. So now she's realized, now Samitsu's like, God damn it, and she's about to lose her shit. She's on the verge of losing control of Ailil and now the palace itself. She's not liking the direction that this is going, because also, when Catswain gets back, there's going to be all hell to pay. Sashalle decides they need to investigate this Ogier and stomps out of the room, leaving Samitsu to either stay or come running after her. So staying is not an option, so she has to run after her. Now, in big capital letters here in bold, I've written, there are so many descriptions of tapestries and clothes. Honest to God, when I was doing these notes, I must have skipped 10 pages between now, as they're walking down the halls, to when they arrive in the kitchens at the bottom, where they are, where they meet the
You don't want to talk about how fast they're walking and who's walking in front and who's following whom?
You know who's walking in front, and it's later there's another walk because they have to go back upstairs again, and then there's other people in there who are in different positions in the line. We can get to that. So they eventually get down to the kitchens because the kitchens are like sub-level B. And they get there where all the staff are gathered around the Ogier and his companion, Mr. Underhill. Underhill. Yep. And they're letting all the sauces burn. No one is attending to their tasks in the kitchen. They're all gathered around this table, having a chat. We meet Master Ladar, who's very interested in Rand. The kitchen staff are super gossipy and have tons of questions about Master Ladar's travel to the Borderlands, yada, yada, yada. Master Ladar and his companions seem very interested in the Ashaman that were bonded as warders, but the ladies won't talk about that because that's Aes Sedai business. Mr. Underhill spits at the mention of Aes Sedai. Ooh, who is this Mr. Underhill? Sashalle and Samitsu, by the way, have been standing right there this whole time while all this conversation and gossiping has been going on. Until eventually one of the kitchen staff sees her and like pulls on Mistress Belder's sleeves, that's the head kitchen slave driver, to get her attention. Everyone notices now what's going on, that there are Aes Sedai in the room. The kitcheners, I keep calling them different things just to not repeat myself, leap up to their feet and under orders to save the sauces and the burnt loaves in the oven and peel the cabbages or whatever you do with cabbages, and they run off, leaving a very nervous Mr. Ladar, son of Shandon, son of Caemlyn, there. He's also super hasty to leave. He's like, oh, right, well, sorry. He's kind of not looking in their direction. He's like, I gotta go, we gotta get going. They're like, listen, it's nighttime. You know, where you gonna go now? Sashalle is on to him, though. She runs and stands in front of him. She's very fast on her feet as well. He had entered the city under the guise of an Ogier stonemason, but Sashalle notices his smooth, uncalloused hands, more used to reading books, perhaps. Samitsu sees her opening to get back some control because she has heard of a young Ogier called Loial and a friend who was a friend of Rand's who left with another young man named Krldin. Busted. Krldin immediately starts demanding answers from them. The jig is up. It's them. It's Loial. We haven't seen him in ages. Thanks for coming back. And he wants answers immediately. He's very demanding. He's like, what happened to the other Ashaman and Rand? Where is he? Did he go mad? Is this why half the palace is destroyed? Suddenly, Samitsu realizes that this young man is not a tamed Ashaman like Dharma or Narishma. He's been in the wild and he is feral. Like she realizes I may have become, too relaxed around these Ashaman that have been bonded. This guy is not one of them. She wonders if he is holding the one power, like right this minute, and then he realizes, like, duh, he 100% is. And if she and Sashalle could take him down if needed, like, do we have to attack this guy and take him down? And she figures, we could take him, I think. I'm like, I'm not so sure, because if he's already holding the power, and he is feral, I don't know. She tells him...
She's not so sure herself. She thinks, we can do that, right? We can. We absolutely can. Like, she repeats herself like a couple times. She's telling
just,
herself.
Motivating herself. Yeah, like, you can do it. You can do it.
It'll be fine.
She tells him, like, listen, Rand is sane-ish. He's alive, but they don't know where he is. Fedwin died of poison, and he immediately mumbles something about the wine. Like, he knows exactly what happened there. No need for exclamation, because they say he died of poison, but we don't know who poisoned him. He's like, I know exactly what happened there. And the others, not Fedwin, Narishma, Dharma, Flynn, that's the other guy. They all became warders freely. All this news is unsettling to them, to Loial and to what's his name, Krldin. Because they had come back to report to Rand that they had closed all the way gates. Remember, that's what their mission was, because they've been living rough, by the way. They are unshaven and dirty and smelly and all that kind of stuff. They've been living it rough. And now they don't know what to do. And while they like kind of mumbled to each other, they said, like, we did what he wanted us to as well as we could. And they keep the rest of the story to themselves, obviously. But Samitsu hears this as well as they could part, and she sees an opportunity to keep them close and get some info out of them. But they are again interrupted by a young serving girl who comes running in, shouting that Dobraine has been murdered. So the Aes Sedai are immediately, look, we've heard all kinds of crazy shit before. We want proof. Like, where did you hear this? It's like, no, this guy told this guy who told this woman who told me. They're like, all right, no, we need to go check this out for ourselves. So off we go again, up all those stairs. We're in sub-level B, remember? All the way back up to top to Dobraine's apartments. And Moritz, if you want to talk about who's in the line, Sashalle is again tromping ahead. But mostly because she's really tall and has a very long stride. Loial's keeping up quite easily. Krldin as well. He's just used to, I suppose, walking with Loial. So he's also, his step is not too bothered by it. And they arrive at the top. There's, again, a lot of talking about the tapestries they pass. And they arrive to find a bunch of servants and other palace dwellers gathered around Dobraine's apartment doors. Some with shocked looks, others crying. Ashen faces, I believed, were mentioned. It seems that he might actually really be dead. And this is the part that made me realize, like, oh yes, I don't think I reread this book. I think I totally just did chapter summaries before carrying on, because I don't remember Dobraine being in any issue, in any danger at any point in the story.
Yeah.
They enter, and Dobraine is lying on the floor in a pool of blood. A huge gash in his scalp and bloody gashes all over his chest. He is very dead looking. Everyone just assumes. They even put like a white cloth over his face, like they're covering the corpse. Yeah, he's a goner. Samitsu, being the talented healer that she is, immediately moves towards Dobraine to delve him, just as Sashalle issues an order to her to do that very thing. And she's like kind of stops halfway through her step. He's like, stop telling me what to do, woman. And this reminded me of when I used to work with my dad. He always used to tell me to do stuff that I was already doing, and it drove me insane. I think it was just because he was the boss and he had to tell you what to do. It's like, I'm already doing it. So she delves him. Not my dad, the Dobraine. And can you believe it? He's only 99.9% dead. She has to heal him quickly and carefully, though, as in he is like seconds from death. Like seconds. And hanging on by a thread. But she gets the job done. Rueful that she doesn't know Dharma's 5-weave super healing technique. But making do with her boring old Aes Sedai healing, She even beforehand asks if Krldin first, asks him first if he knows Dharma's way of healing. But he's like, Dharma healing? No, I just kill shit and make things explode. She's fine, whatever. So she does it herself. She does it, he's not dead. So she orders the servants to take him to his bed. Dobraine, that is. Go fetch a wise woman. So, because any more magic healing is going to kill this guy and fill him with honey water, and the wise woman can give him some herbs and stuff, and that'll be fine. He will be all right. This whole time in the background, Krldin, he is very forward, has been searching the bodies of the other 2 dead guys in the room. He's just going through their pockets all willy-nilly. The would-be assassins, that is, the dead guys. And he's found a letter. Loial tries to hide it from the Aes Sedai. Like, he's so big. Everyone's looking at you. You're crumbling papers. Like, you're not hiding anything. But Sashalle, of course, sees them clearly hiding something, like a high school teacher, spotting some note swapping in class. And the note in Dobraine's own handwriting, and I will refer to the holy texts to read this to you right now. Swipe to unlock Kindle. Thank you. At my command, the bearers of this are to remove certain items, which they will know, from my apartments and take them out of the Sun Palace. Make them private of my rooms. Give them whatever aid they require and keep silent on this matter. In the name of the Dragon Reborn and on pain of his displeasure, Dobraine Taborin. Now, in his hand, I doubt written by him, because everybody just assumes that exact same thing at the same time before going like, it would be silly. I don't think he wrote that. I think it's obviously someone copying his style of writing, because, he wouldn't be killed by his own guys. They would recognize him if he's the one that wrote that. Why would they kill him? So it's already... I don't know who wrote that. I don't know, Moritz, if you only
No, I don't. I was hoping you've done the research.
I like
no, I did not.
that Grendel likes writing in the...
That's what I thought as well.
The hand of other people. And that's where my mind went.
But there's more. Because Loial thinks this is very bad news. And he says, like kind of under his breath to Krldin, he says, if there were more than 2, if they found ... before Krldin shushes him because Sashalle is coming over. So if they found, I mean, is this where the access keys were kept? It's like, what would they be afraid that they found in Dobraine's rooms?
And
because only 2 dead guys. So what if there were more guys that came to search for something? What if they found what they were looking for? Because that's like what if they found something that was major? But why would Loial know where Rand was hiding the access keys?
He wouldn't. Like what would Rand have given Dobraine to hold on to?
That Loial knows about and is super worried that someone found.
Sure, I wonder.
But all the magic implements have been accounted for. We know where Calandor is. We know where the access
Dobraine wouldn't
keys.
know.
Dobraine
wouldn't know
maybe
like,
the seals?
where Calandor or the access keys would be. Maybe a seal? Or the seals?
We haven't read about the seals in a while.
Seals?
Like, maybe there's some seals there.
Wonder. Yeah, listeners, help us out here. I could not do the research, but I was also wondering, like, what the fuck could this be? Like, there's nothing obvious to me that jumps out.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Your mind wants to go access keys, but Dobraine wouldn't have them or even know where they are. Rand would keep that stuff.
No.
So
now, have Loial ever been privy to the seals? Discussion of the seals?
I think so.
Yeah, I think there was
he's a
seal
scholar
wrapped up
well.
with the horn of Valir as well at one point. They kept him in the same case.
Possibly.
I think when Loial was very prominent in the story, the seals were as well. Like earlier.
Yeah, yes. And where's the horn is in the hands of the Aes Sedai in the tower.
It's in the White Tower, Yeah, don't know, Joe.
We don't.
Yeah.
Anyway, nothing new there. So, Sashalle overheard Loial mumbling these things. He really needs to watch what he says in front of Aes Sedai. And tries to detain him and Krldin until they tell her everything. Is like, you guys know something. Obviously, clear as day, you know something. And nobody's leaving here until you tell us what it is. But Krldin is like, just itching to see her try and stop them from leaving.
Yes.
And who's going to stop me? You? I fucking dare you. Try it. But before things can get too serious, they are interrupted again. Lots of interruptions. I'm like, can't these people fucking knock? It's Rosario Medrano. Rosario. Or I think if you say it in Spanish, like Rosario Medrano. Don't mind her. She's just here. I did do some research on her. It's like 2 paragraphs. This is her only appearance. She's just here to tell Samitsu. And I'm like, oh, sweet. Someone who's still deferring to Samitsu. That there are Aes Sedai approaching the city. And there are Ashaman with them. And one of these Ashaman is Logain Ablar. And that's how we end. He's going to war to Samitsu?
Caemlyn?
He's arrived.
Wasn't he in the Black Tower? So he's come from Caemlyn to Caemlyn.
Yeah.
Why?
He's looking for Rand. I think he's looking for
Everyone's
Rand.
looking for Rand.
Yeah. So
why is he looking for Rand? What does he want to tell him?
Tell him there's
Tell
a
me now. I
divide
wanna
in
read.
his tower.
Yeah, what's going on at the
happening
Black Tower?
All right. Yeah. Shit is happening. You need to come back and sort this out. They don't listen to me.
We haven't seen any of these Ashaman like Logain or Mishrael or any of those guys comment on the cleansing of the source yet, so that might not have happened.
No.
So at this point, Rand is not in Caemlyn, but he's probably in Farmadding.
I think based on the lack of any reaction of any channeler, male or female, in all of these prologues. Like, I mean, that's the first thing that the Aes Sedai would have said, like, what the freaking hell was that in the tower? Because they would have gone like...
We're probably going to hear a lot about that.
So I think that this is, again, one of that, back while we were doing all those other things in Randland in the last book, this is what happened in all these other places. We just didn't manage to fit it into the volume.
Yeah, and it's also like we're going to be reading about characters we haven't read about in a little while, so it's just setting up like their whole situation. Like, yeah, this is what's happening in Caemlyn at the moment. But you're right, Joe. I also didn't remember this Dobraine attack at all.
That also does make the question around what Loial is worried that they get hold of. sort of a little bit more open because it is the access keys there. Okay, we know Rand kept the access keys close at hand and hidden behind.
I don't think Loial ever knew that Rand had access keys. Rand has to explain it to Cats, and like people don't know what they are, let alone that Rand has them, let alone where Rand has them, right? Like Rand has not shared that within. Lanfear knows and Rand knows. That's it. And then when he tells Nynaeve, she knows. And then he tells Catswain at Shadar Logoth. Right? Like it is secret. Loial doesn't know that. The closest thing to that I could think of was Kalandor.
Well, I've got a wild stab at what it was.
Stab away.
Eternal secret blend.
The recipe for Coca-Cola.
Spices. Well, the recipe of Coca-Cola. Look, that's my guess.
Did you have any notes, Phil, for this Samitsu chapter?
No, I genuinely crashed out by the time that I got.
Did you try and do the whole prologue in one go?
I'm so time poor at this moment that I've had to do extra duties this week with children and all the rest.
Okay, I know. This is probably where my reading ahead helped me because I was ahead, so I didn't have any rush. So I could just read little bits at a time to the extent where I'd finished the chapter, the prologue, by the time we recorded the last episode. I'm 2 chapters into the next batch as well.
I'm not.
You guys will be happy to know it's all Matt.
Yes.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yes, after this I went to the first chapter and saw the dice. And that it's called something about like leaving something or arriving or something like that.
It is
whatever happened last.
Time to be gone.
Then you know it.
Yeah.
So he still hasn't left Ibudar. It's time to be gone now.
Spoilers, but he's
in the rain at night.
He's right outside the city.
It's nighttime and raining though.
No, it's not. It's a couple days after the events. Okay. He's specifically staying close to the city to throw off suspicion. Like the Seanchan would think that he's like herring off somewhere, but he's actually 2 miles outside the city with Val and Lucas Circus. Anyway, back to this book, or this chapter, this episode. I'll rattle off my notes about this Samitsu chapter and we can score it and then we can move along with our lives and be done with glimmers of the pattern. So, Joe, you explained quite succinctly who Sashalle was. Samitsu, if we'll recall, is one of Cadswain's posse that rocked up in Cairhien with her. She was with Rand and Cadswain at Torum Righton's party when the fog attack happened and Rand got nicked. She tried to heal him on the spot there and helped Cadswain bring him back to the city. And when Dharma and another one of the Aes Sedai in the city also helped try to heal Rand.
Watching Dharma heal Rand really left her discombobulated.
Yeah.
She's blown away by that guy. That's why she asks old Krldin as well if he knows how to do that.
Yeah. It's mentioned here that 31 sisters have sworn fealty to Rand. 31. That's a lot.
I wrote 51. No, that's the Black Tower. Sorry. No, I've got my numbers mixed up.
Oh, yes, that's
the ones that were captured at the Black Tower.
That's the Force, yeah, Tovin and her 50. Samitsu thinks to herself that Sashalle will need to work with the power for years to regain the ageless look, but it's actually the break from the Oath Rod when she was stilled that has taken away the ageless look. So Samitsu doesn't quite understand the mechanics. I mean, the Aes Sedai don't know. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
They're all stupid.
Right, Gerald? There's a brief little section you're talking about, like Joe, you said tapestries and like carpets and stuff, but also fashion. And in particular, Min's fashion sense, like the tight-fitting breeches and the coats that don't cover your hips and stuff, is becoming more and more popular now. So, like Min's
scandalous.
Yes, it's taking hold. She also thinks to herself when thinking about all the nobles in the city, it's weird that we would have thought someone like Bertome and Wiramon could be walking together in the hallways, like having conversations, and they fought together in is it Altara? Where Rand was pushing back the Seanchan forces in the mountains. Also had the note about Mr. Underhill. That's got to be a Tolkien reference, right? Like you can't call anyone after that book. You can't call anyone Mr. Underhill without it being a direct quote. And then I was just so fucking annoyed by, I can't remember if it was Samitsu or Sashalle, who thinks that because Krldin and Loial are obviously like travel worn and stuff, she thinks a tired man or Ogier feeling lost and alone would be ripe for answering questions. It's so manipulative. It's just so Aes Sedai. So
and wrong.
Didn't
Those
like
two.
that. Yeah, no.
Or maybe
maybe Loial. He just spills the beans.
that's it. Yeah, but he's not. You don't need to manipulate him. You just need to look at him. Show the little Aes Sedai ring on your finger, and he'll just crumble.
Yeah, totally. All right, Vil, what was your score for the Samitsu POV?
Feeling generous with regards to this one. I'll be very honest.
Okay.
I'm happy Loial's back.
Yeah.
There might be something interesting. He brings a different dynamic.
Yeah.
But I wasn't particularly excited about this whole chapter. It was incredibly long. Point of view, sorry. It was like 20 pages, 21 pages.
Yes. I mean, that's what a chapter is like usually in the book. The chapters range around there.
After you've done 69 pages of this nonsense, to end it with that.
The number of pages we covered is exactly the same as every other episode.
But it's like sometimes 3, sometimes 4 point of views and topics, and mostly rad shit happens. Yeah. Anyway, I'm just gonna go with full bland 5 and leave it at that.
All right, Joseph.
I concur. 5.
All right. Yeah, for me it was also a low point, so like 6. Rad about, Dobraine. There was an attempted murder. Dobraine, beloved character. I like him a lot. Like who tried to murder? He saved. Oh, thank God he's not dead. Who forged his hand? What are they talking about? Loial and Krldin are back. Like a lot of cool things. But the fucking power struggle between Samitsu and Sashalle is just like, it's one of those that it's not just mentioned. It's like hammered into you. And I know that we're in Samitsu's point of view and it's a point of consternation for her. But RJ, honestly, I did not need to know that.
Yeah, but it's replacing the struggle we had back in the Salidar mini tower between the two sitters. Who were they? Like, I don't know. I've got shell shock thinking of that.
Ramanda and Logain.
Ramanda and Logain. Like, it's just, again, the same old thing that's happening, just a different character in a different place. Okay,
I guess we don't hear from Samitsu. We never get POVs from Samitsu, so like RJ is just giving us a dump of everything that's going on inside of her head and her emotional state. What else? That was it. My last notes were the arrival of Logain is rad, and who wrote that note in Dobraine's hand, like in his handwriting. I hope we find out. If the listeners know, please let us know.
Grandal.
So we were not going to make a habit out of scoring chapters or anything. I just wanted to get a gauge of like what you guys thought of the individual sections, because of your overall feeling about the prologue that we had communicated during the week was really low, and it's not quite as low as I thought it maybe have been. Some low points for sure, but it sounds like you haven't turned against the book just yet. It was just like there was some hard, shall I say, slogs in there.
There were. But when we get together and we discuss it, and you say things I never considered,
fun.
It's different. And I'm like, all right, no, there was actually a nugget in there that I
a little bit of something
I didn't appreciate as much as I did at 11 o'clock at night, lying in bed trying to finish this fucking thing. It's different.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but if you could have heard how I went off today about this, I was cursing at you, Moritz. I was cursing at you, Jody. I was cursing at it was tedious. It really was tedious, and it's not the content. I feel it's whopping in 13% of the book as a prologue. It's just, and it happened before, and I remember reading this book the first time. I skipped it. I just when it just kept going on. I paged. I'm like, fuck this. Chapter 1, Matt.
That's so interesting to me,
this
because
is what I want to read.
Just because there are not chapter markers in it, the number of pages seem to bother you. And I know you said it's because it's one long thing, but there's actually more points of view here. Like, so it's actually like it's keeping you switching it up more often than normal chapters do.
That's the issue. Is the content makes it seem longer.
But we've just proven
content.
By scoring them that they're not all boring. That was my secret. That was my secret strategy. Now look, I think the circumstances under which you are reading are making a big difference here. If you're trying to get the reading done before a podcast episode and you have to make notes and it's like late at night or you're like tired from work and stuff, that is your experience for both of you was obviously much different to mine, which was weeks ago, reading it with like all the time in the world, like, you know, sitting outside on the deck, drinking a coffee, like, you know, listening to the birds.
Were you crying next to the pool?
I wasn't quite crying, but I was certainly like taking my time and enjoying it.
Praying for it to end. Please make it end.
I was. But also it's a habit with like, okay, a cool prologue, Dark Social.
Oh yeah.
Leaves a lot of questions, looking for tidbits, not too long.
Like I said, dense with references and stuff, right? Like all the people he's spotting and like all the hems of their dresses and yeah.
Yukiri section had me engaged because, again, a massive storyline. Like they did a big thing. It's not just like, okay, cool, I'm on a hilltop,
but also just people standing in a hallway talking, right? Like the exact same criticism you've leveled at the other chapters.
Yeah, people standing in a hallway talking, not action, but to do with a heck of a line. There's a linear trend through it. We're never going to find Dobraine stood on a hill. Not Dobraine, now listen to me.
Bashere.
Bashere stood on a hill. And this one fucking climbed out of his hayloft to find all his horses downstairs and confused about life. Like, okay, cool. Lob it into a chapter somewhere. Don't kick off something that, okay, put yourself in the mind of the first-time reader. Wait it for.
Mm-hmm.
To dive straight into that, I mean, I can tangibly remember the disappointment of picking up that book and seeing that this thick, and I'm pointing to 1.5 centimeters for people who use the real scale of things.
This is a 3/4 inch for the rest of you.
Of book that you could have said, okay, that is, I believe this prologue is the reason it's called the slog. This prologue.
Wow.
I don't think that anything after this we're going to feel the same.
That's all. The rest of the book is actually fine.
We're going to find out. I think about this book, I feel the exact opposite to you, Will. Like, clearly from this episode, and our listeners can hear, like, I'm actually quite enthusiastic about the stuff I read here. I feel like it's later in the book where things really slow down and what I still remember to be the slog. But like Jody, I read chapter summaries last time, right? Like, it's not like I'm speaking from actual recent experience. I mean, I read this book when it was published and then not since. So that's a long ass time ago.
Yeah.
All right, so out of all that terrible garbage, Willie, did you manage to pick a favorite moment?
Yes.
What was it?
When it ended.
Should have seen that one coming. When it says
chapter 1 and we have the wind blowing.
There's a wind. Thank Christ for the wind.
We've sat here for 3 hours and we haven't even mentioned the wind blowing through the mountains of mist coming down the spring of wells and all nonsense.
That's why.
Like, it's over. It's done.
Okay, so that was your favorite moment. Okay, cool.
No,
fair enough.
I mean,
hey, to each his own, right? Like, I'm not gonna pretend like I should be like convincing you that it is good or not. It's just it's interesting and I think fun to talk about how our experiences of it are different and all valid.
But okay, and again, I'll go back to Yukiri and that section there. Because I was heavily invested in the rooting out of the Black Aja coming from, and the beauty is that it came from a Lida trying to out Alviaran.
Yes.
Like that story.
Who is Black Aja?
Who is Black Aja, but for all the wrong reasons, for all the wrong points of everything. She reminds me a lot of the Whitecloaks and how lost she is. She might have been Eamon Valda as well, but that storyline has got me gripped. I love that storyline. I want to see where it goes. The detective work, checking registers.
Cian figuring out the unusual sitters being chosen. Yeah,
I think and I mean, if I have to deep dive on it, for me, it's the first real dive into dealing with the Grey Archer. Like really, their way of thinking. There's a lot of references to logic and pragmatism.
The Greys are the logic, right? They're not the diplomats. Is that the Whites?
Yes.
I think it wasn't the other way around. Aren't Whites the logic?
Oh, Christ.
Greys the diplomats?
We're showing our whole ass here.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, Maurice, put it away. Oh, thank God people can't see the video.
That for me was the standout. And like I said, all the rest could have been lobbed into a paragraph in a chapter, respectively. 6 little paragraphs could have covered all of this nonsense.
Well, I'll agree to disagree. I think there's a lot more here than 6 paragraphs worth of stuff. I would ask Jody...
Sisters of the White Archer, of the White Archer abstain from matters of the world and worldly knowledge, and instead devote themselves to questions of philosophy and truth.
The Greys?
They're
the bargainers. They're the diplomats.
Yeah.
Because it was one of the two.
The White Archer are the logic people. But I can see that a Grey would also have logic as part of their toolkit.
Oh, absolutely. And Cian, is Yukiri Grey or Cian is Grey? Which one of them is... Cian sounds like a white. If she's using logic to deduce this phenomenon of the Archer heads.
Yukiri is Grey.
Yukiri is Grey. Because, Vil, I think you mentioned finding another Grey Archer sister that was a black Archer was a bit of a shock to her, but not as much as Pavara was shocked to find out that Galena, another red, was. Apparently then Pavara also, when she found that out, was like, now she's dead set and getting her hands on Galena. Like, once she's come around, she's come all the way around. Now she's the most fierce about getting her.
Now it's emotional again. Emotion anger.
Yeah.
And emotion revenge.
Joe, did you find out what Archer Cian is?
Cian is white.
There we go. Using logic to figure out the collusion.
We've got a list. Falion is also white.
I
forgot about it. So is Diagian. He was bonded to
Daigen.
Eben.
To Eben.
Eben Etzebeth. Joe, what was your...
Eben can't die. He is invincible. The story's wrong.
Too strong.
Yes, my favorite moment was Dira. I actually have one this time. Planned in advance.
Nice.
Awesome. Let me just read to you. She says, I will start at the beginning, Davram, and go slowly so you can understand, she added with a small smile.
Yeah.
I returned from my ride to find 2 strange men ransacking our tent. They drew daggers, so naturally I hit one of them with a chair and stabbed the other. That's exactly. Naturally. I mean, what would you do?
Yes.
I hit them with a chair and stab the other one.
Also, I like how Davram is saying like how they are viewed as strange by other Borderlanders because they make these sort of jokes and they specifically don't shout at each other. But then Fail is the one trying to teach Perrin to like shout at her. Like her own parents don't do it. Not really. Not like the rest of the Soldans.
Yeah.
Yeah, dig her. I dig their relationship. Davram Bashere's whole vibe is just rad.
Yes.
I think, Willie, you said it earlier. Like, just everything about him is cool.
Short dude, crazy handlebar mustache, always lounging in chairs.
Arm, like leg over the arm of the chair.
Like, nothing's worrying him.
Drinking a bit of punch, yeah. All right, mine is not the same as Jody's. It is the introduction of another great captain, Rodel Ituralde. Knowing what his plan for the Sean Chan is and seeing the first glimmers of that plan is just cool. Like I'm like these intricate battle plans are very fun to read, and to see them sort of seeded here. I'm eager to see when they play out. Like, is it in this book? This might be the last time we see Rodel Ituralde in this book, right? It might only be again in book 11 or 12, where these events actually now take place. I had some honorable mentions. Getting an overview of the Caemlyn siege from Davram Bashere, I think was very valuable because we are going to be spending a lot of time in that scene, from what I recall. So getting a bit of like background and just like the rules of engagement set up for me is useful. And then I also really enjoyed Logain sticking up for Gabrelle and Tovin against Mishrael. Like when he makes those comments about the one being too plump, but the other one looking good for a go. Logan is just like, don't ever say that again. Just, it's not going to end well for you. And that is it. So to our listeners, send us your favorite moments. Send us your theories, your thoughts, corrections, or just say hello. You can do so using any of the social media links in the episode description below. And when you stop by the website, you can buy a t-shirt or leave us a voice message that we can include in the show. Once you've done all that, please leave us a review of the podcast on your favorite podcast app so we can get those algorithms to promote the show and grow the community for even more fun theories and observations. That's a lot to do. Go sit down, have a rest, pick up Crossroads of Twilight, and get ready for next time on Blood and Ashes, where we will cover chapters 1 through 4. That would be 4 chapters.
Maths is tricky, man. You got to make sure.
The chapter names are Time to Be Gone, Matt, leaving Ibudar, stoked. 2 captains, still Matt, and guess?
Captain of the Green?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
Chapter 3 is A Fan of Colors, and chapter 4, The Tale of a Doll, which I will not remember.
Tale of a Doll?
Mm-hmm.
Fine.
Sure.
But like tail as in the thing that's on an animal's butt, or like
no, Tale of Two Cities.
The Tale of a Doll. That's what's her name? The short chick. May she live forever.
Tuon,
that's it. She's like a doll. She's always described as...
that's true. Good. Yeah, nice one. I like that.
Yeah, maybe way off, but let's go.
I'm loving your direction.
I'm committed now.
Willie, I hope you have a better time reading these chapters.
Oh yeah, I'm past the prologue now. It's going to be easy from here.
It's just Matt.
Watch me all happy next time, all great. And then what I'm going to do when we reach these chapters where this prologue has got reference, I'm going to bring it in a one paragraph and show you it can be delivered.
Challenge accepted.
I just want to see it happen because I doubt it will. All right.
Well, let's see. It's probably not going to happen in the next episode, but some cool shit with Matt is going to happen in the next episode.
Righto.
But until then, I will say to the two of you and everyone else, sleep well and wake.
Cheers, everyone.
Good evening.